Not sure if Aaron or Manny, if that happened in your class a lot. When we actually do anything with code or anything like that, I do record the screens so that if you guys do miss class or just want to review it, you can. You guys saw the Yahtzee ones when you did your stuff. It's just reminding you that's what we do. I can't trim. I don't have the time to trim these, unfortunately. I know you guys dealt with that with the Yahtzees. I wish I could. If anyone, like I said, if anyone wants to volunteer to do some just trimming anytime, feel free to let me know. I'll give you access. But other than that, I do what I can.
What do we
But-
get?
What's that?
What do we get if we do it?
My undying gratitude.
Forget it.
Satisfaction of doing
I
something.
have to code. I don't have time to do
I know,
that.
that's why I'm saying that's why I'm not asking anyone to actually do it, but
What about
Yeah.
like a free pass from the Wheel of Doom?
Free pat. That's a good one.
I am tempted on that. I will consider it. But it depends what it would be, because then that would mean you just have to present to me privately then, which just.
I'm just trying to
Yeah.
incentivize
Yeah.
Keith, that's all.
worse.
I'll consider it. Maybe what I can do is I put everybody in twice, so you have a higher chance of going last, or you get to choose when you go. We'll figure something out. I could probably figure out some sort of incentive. I just have to figure out what. Anyway, so what we're gonna do here now is we're actually gonna use more of our packages. So we're actually not gonna even use com.company in this one. We're actually gonna create a new overall package. And so that's a new thing we're gonna do now. We're gonna create a new parent class, a parent package. Under source, you can actually click on source and do new package here. This way it is a completely separate, almost project from the other one. They do not share anything unless they actually import it. So in order to use this item, you actually have to do the import command this time, because you're no longer part of the same package family. So we're gonna do, and a very common thing to do is to do com dot whatever it is. This is a common practice, mostly just because you want the unique identifier that is related to your website or to your company. And so com dot something, so we're just using like a reverse URL syntax is kind of the main way of, or main practice that you see a lot of times going. This has been heavily adopted by the mobile app market. So Apple and Android things, they heavily recommend this format when creating a project name. We're gonna do com dot, and today we're gonna do fruit stand. So we're gonna do store, or grocery store, we'll do that. The grocery store package. And create a new Java class, and this is just gonna be our main as a way to make sure that this package can be run on its own without any other system. So I'm gonna create the main package here. This main here is gonna be main for testing purposes. We're actually gonna want to run this thing from the company main, not from the grocery main. Main and grocery is gonna be our testing system. I want to be able to showcase how we can still pull from other packages into other packages. So that way, when you're ready to, if you do make one project and you do make a new project with another thing, you can see how you can take a package from one to another. This is also going to help you a little bit once you start getting into Spring Boot and you start bringing in packages through Maven, which is Java's NPM. One of them, at least. There's two of them. And there's Maven and I think it's Kotlin. What is it? I can't remember now. Dang it. Does anyone know what the other one is? Can you confirm that for me?
Well, I know that
Looked at it.
Kotlin shows up in IntelliJ. I don't know if that.
That's why, yeah, I think that's why. That's
I know
pretty common. That's why
Groovy
it
shows
is.
up too. I don't know if that's it though.
What is it?
Groovy.
Groovy's another one. And there's also Gradle too, I think. Gradle is more with the Java Google app development. So Maven is more, Maven is more, Gradle is more with the mobile app development. I think that's a Google thing. So yeah, there's several package managers in Java, depending on what the goal is, what you're trying to do. So whereas JavaScript, you pretty much have NPM and Yarn. Those are your two main. Java, there's several more. There's a bunch of them that you can use. So without using that though, you also want to know that you can pull projects in locally. So you can drag and drop like a package manager package into it. I don't know if we'll actually get into actually compiling a package that you can then bring in through an import through the IntelliJ system. Because then you can look at it yourself. Mainly, I just want to make sure you know that you can take one of these, copy it, and paste it into another project that you create in IntelliJ, and that you can then use that package. That way, again, we focus heavily on Java's reusability, which is what OOP's all about. We create a class once, we shouldn't have to create it again. We just bring it in and either update it in a way that doesn't break the original, or we make a child class out of it and inherit from it. So that's usually how you want things to work. You either bring something over and add stuff to it that doesn't break the original use. This is going back to like week 1. Remember, we have the cup class. Very first time we create a cup class, not in the game, but like a drinking cup. We had our first cup that just has the volume and that's it. Then we have our drink dispenser system. We just know the volume of our cup. We don't need to know anything else about it. But as soon as we want to take that cup class with the drink dispenser and bring it into a coffee machine, we now need to know the heat tolerance of the cup. What material is it? What's the heat tolerance? And so we can add that field and add those parameters to our cup class and have it work with our coffee dispenser while still using that exact same class in our drink dispenser and have it not break. Because again, the drink dispenser doesn't care about the thermal temperature threshold. So that's really what we want to make sure we're getting into, because that's good encapsulation allows for reusability. And we're going to talk about, I think we actually mentioned it last week, actually, that idea of coupling. I can't remember who asked that question about coupling. That was you, Keith? Thought so. I wasn't sure. I was trying to remember. Yeah, the idea of coupling. We want to make sure that our classes are not strongly coupled together so that way a class can move on. Something's going to be digging into. But let's go ahead and start with this. We have our main and grocery store. We just want to make sure we type in main. We'll get this nice little main method declaration. If you know what the method is, you can use the shortcut. But what you should try, what I want you guys to do today, though, is try typing out the main method on your own first to see if you know it right now. You know it.
Yeah.
You do? Do you have to figure it out?
Yep.
I had already typed it in.
Oh, all good. You want to make sure you know it by heart. That's the main thing for this, because you may not have that shortcut. If you know by heart, you can use a shortcut. Yeah, public static void main. The string args. So make sure you do know this. It's a good thing to have known, because if you ever do get into an interview, you may not have access to that shortcut. It's not likely, but these are kind of the things you want to make sure you're doing with some of your other shortcuts. Be aware of them, understand them. Don't just use them and move on. Use them, but understand them. Cool. Have that. So let's pull up the assignment again so we can look at what the requirements were. Classroom. Ooh, that reminds me. I actually have to add 2 people to the classroom now. Manny and that one. Manny and Aaron, you have an invite to the cohort 12 Google Classroom. So if you go to Classroom, go to the main dashboard on it, you'll have an invite to the Google Classroom.
Why is mains have the string with array and then args?
Arguments. So especially in a command line app, you can actually add in additional arguments to a command line statement. So in any sort of command, like if you've done the CP command, you know what that is?
Yeah, copy.
Yeah. Now I say, we do CP, CH12 encapsulation, CH12 new IML. This is actually a program, an executable, and these 2 here are arguments.
Arguments, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's what this allows. You could actually look into that to learn how you could do arguments if you were figured out how to make it where it's runnable from the command line. You would have
But
to build it.
why is like the string with an array symbol?
Oh, well, they're using a simple array, right?
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a simple array. It's not a list, it's just an array.
Okay. So
Yeah.
because it's a data type, it's a simple array.
Yep. Oh, it is. Nothing too fancy. Looks fancy, but it's not.
Just in case someone ever asked me, I wouldn't be able to answer it. Now I know.
I'm not too worried about it personally, because we're not going to do command line arguments, because again, we're going to be very shortly moving away from the command line apps into Spring Boot.
Yeah.
So just be aware of that. So we are going to be moving to Spring Boot, which is then bringing in websites. So then we won't be using the command line at all anymore. That's why I really didn't worry about it. It's not a big deal. But again, if anyone wants to deal with it, they
you
could.
invited me in as a teacher.
Did I?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah, because it says I can like create announcements and all that.
Yeah, it would be
Because I was
interesting.
invited to teach in this class.
I'm looking. Yeah, you're a teacher. Why are you a teacher? But
I
oh wait,
think I am
both are.
too.
How about that? Oh, I hit the
teachers.
wrong plus. Sorry, removing you two.
2 new
I hit
TAs,
the-
all right.
I hit the wrong button. So to get you guys in quick, and I hit the wrong plus button. Whoops. Try that again.
Now they're obligated to teach this class.
There we go. Let's give that a second shot. All right, try again.
Travis became a black hole. Okay,
What?
sorry.
What?
Travis became a black hole.
Oh.
So- I had to say it, sorry.
My God.
Yeah, he's just a void now.
All right. Yeah, no.
I wonder if he's even
His
there,
mass,
I-
his
I
mass
can
got
look at it.
compressed to a single atom, and caused him to.
actually. Because he left, by the way. I don't know if you saw in chat. He actually walked away. I'm surprised that the system's keeping an outline of him, though. Usually the green screen system doesn't do that. Unless it's outlining his chair. Anyway. Weird.
Sorry. Go ahead.
That is a little distracting. I can understand that. All good? Eridan, Manny, all good? All right.
Yeah, all good.
Yeah.
Students now. Awesome. Okay. Back to the assignment.
Bye, guys. Take care. It's due at 7:30. Okay.
Come on, load it up. Move out of the way, Zoom. Zoom's in my way. That. All right, cool. So Proto stands updating this version. We're going to look at a product class and 2 child product classes and a store class. We have the store balance. We're going to have a collection of products that are available to purchase, adding, selling, and throwing away. We're also going to have a console class that we can actually interact with the system. We're going to start right from the top, usually. We'll start right with the product class that has 2 child classes, and we get to be a little more creative in this, as we saw before. So one thing I could say is you might not know what packages you need right away. So don't be afraid to start without packages and then adding those packages later once you realize that there is a connection between some items. So you can always initially start without packages unless they're obvious to you. Is there any sort of obvious package we want here based on the items we have? Is there anything that screams at you?
I would think so, between product and the 2 child classes.
We could probably make a product package, right?
Yeah.
Start with that. And if we realize, you know what, we're not really benefiting from the package, we can always extract them out of it, right? So it can go either way. You can, if you're someone that puts everything in the default package first, and then as you see the connections, put them into your own packages later. Or you can be someone that starts with a package because it seems so obvious, and then realize, you know what, this is not really benefiting from the package. You can then take them out. So don't feel like you're bound once you make a decision. Anything important?
In React, we use like a component folder for everything. Can I use just like a package to drop everything there?
Yeah, that's. I wouldn't recommend doing everything in one package. That's the thing. You would definitely want to have that separation because it's going to It's going to participate in the access modifiers. That's where the big item is. We're going to talk about what you didn't see on Thursday is the concept of protected versus public and private. And we're going to see that again today. Make sure everyone sees it and understands what that difference is. In 2 seconds, once I see what I'm being pinged for. Something I need to pay attention to. It's fine, not me. Oh yeah, by the way, before I move any further, because I just saw it, any issues of anybody filling out the form that was posted in the general and I think in the classroom? Everybody here fill it out.
A little bit, and when it's done, there's a little.
Yeah, fill it out.
Press enter to exit.
What for?
But
Oh, there was a form?
yes,
Oh, I see. I just saw it. Okay.
yep. If you have trouble see it, it's also in general. So you can head to general and fill that out as soon as you get a chance. It will be required to be able to join class tomorrow, I believe. So who is that? Oh, Emilio made it. Nice. Cool. There we go. Awesome. Check. No, okay, good. So that was the only thing I had to check on. Okay. So let's go ahead and make our package. So we'll do a package. And let's think of a term for this. So we have the product package. Is there any other term we could come up with it? We have product, we could call it items, we could call it whatever. Any ideas? Package
Product.
work, product. Yeah, we can do that. That does make sense, doesn't it? Let's do the products package. This is going to contain multiple types of products, not just a single product class, but multiple types of products. The product class, as well as any child classes, are going to be stored in this package. So we can call this the products package. We'll then create our product class. In most cases, most classes are representing the blueprint for an individual item. All right, this is our starting point. What are some fields we can use?
A name.
Name of the product, yep. So that's going to be a string, I'm going to assume. And what we're also going to do now is we're going to start changing. So in the past, as I said before, and some of you guys are now doing it, which is great, we used to start with just making everything public originally. And in the beginning, during learning, that's safe because we don't have to worry about things not being accessible and getting confused as to why I can and can't access things. Now we want to start making sure we keep things safe. We want to isolate things and make them private so we can then get requested, and that way only that which should have access has access to things. And so for moving forward, we want to start everything as private initially, and then we change it as we realize we need it. Once we realize we need the item, we're then going to turn it and make it public, or protected, or create a getter, or a setter. Which again, we'll talk about as we get through those. So we got private string name.
Every time that you create a private, shouldn't you already set up a setter and a getter?
Well, if you do that, it's no different from being public, is it? And that's the thing that a lot of, I do that, and actually I'm glad when you said that, because that's something that a lot of tutorials do, because it's easier to go through the process. Instead of teaching people, instead of having them start with public, they make you do the private with the getter and setter initially, because it's easier just to do that. And then you learn that terminology of getter and setter. The downside of just using getters and setters every single time you create a private item is that that item is now technically public. The only difference is I just use a method versus accessing the item directly. But if there's no logic in the getter and setter, I have the same free level of modification that I would if I made it public. And so it's something that if you were to do it in an interview, it's not going to ruin you, but showcasing that level of awareness that a item with a getter and setter with no logic is no different than a public is actually going to show just a deeper understanding of OOP and the access system. So that's why I push that concept of don't create a default getter and setter. And if you have a getter and setter that has no logic in it, just make it public. Make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. Good question. Let's do another one. What's another field we can have for our product?
Price.
Yeah, right. And why am I using int? Can anyone remember? How do we usually represent money?
Normally dollars, but we want to do cents
And Keith, you remember why?
because of decimal place.
Right.
It-
Imprecision,
we-
right?
Yeah, yes,
That's the term we want to remember. Imprecision.
imprecision.
Computers, binary doesn't know how to deal with decimals. So when you do decimal-based math, you're risking getting that imprecision in there. And since money can easily be represented as a whole number, Eridan or Manny, do you know how money can be stored as a whole number?
Either as a double or a float.
No, as a whole number.
Oh, sorry.
I don't want-
Oh, as a whole number.
Yeah.
Either as a byte, integer, or
I got an integer, yeah. But how can I represent $32.81 as a whole number?
times it by 100.
What does that mean though? When I times that by 100, what am I representing? Yeah, I could do
You
3281. What is that?
are-
3281 what?
Is a whole number, right?
It's a whole number, but
Yeah.
if I
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's $3281 anymore, would I?
Yeah.
What is it?
It is 3,000.
Right, 3,281 what? Can you guess, Aridin? Not
No.
dollars anymore. Oh, what is, how would you say this? Would you say that is $0.81 or would you say that is?
It's cents.
Right. We do this symbol here
Yeah.
now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 3,281 cents.
So
I
all
can
the numbers
guarantee you-
for values of cash is stored on cents, not on
I can
dollars.
guarantee that your bank very likely stores your entire balance in cents, not in dollars. They just display dollars when they want to display, because that's how we like it. But I can guarantee it's stored as an int and it's stored as cents.
I'm gonna
That's
call him
kinda
and ask him tomorrow.
I
How
would
much
love
money
to
do I
hear-
have in cents?
I would love to
Actually,
hear
I
the
can
tell us-
confirm that. I have a friend that works for banks. I can ask
Huh.
him.
Cool, that'd be awesome.
So cents are relevant in practical, like everyday uses, but in computers, it's essential, huh?
Until we actually eliminate the penny, then we'll just count everything in 10 cents. If we stop worrying about the change, then we'll start storing things as dollars. We only care, like, technically, we would be just acting like the yen from Japan. The yen doesn't have cents. They're just, everything's a whole number. So we would just be acting like them if we decided to do that. And we could. It's actually kind of funny that we don't, but I can guarantee that in computers, just to save us from imprecision and from doing decimal math, we store things as ints because we want to avoid decimals. Because again, I challenge you guys, we know we can store the number 12 as binary. That's not a difficult number to store. 8,
1010.
1010.
Is that it? 10.
That's
Wait, is that 10?
That's 4 plus 8.
That's 10.
1100. Yeah,
Yeah.
you gave me 10, which is so
Yeah.
good. Yeah, 12 would be 1100. But again, if we ask, hey, how do I store 12.3 in decimal in binary?
Luck.
Yeah, and that's the thing that we got to remember. Computers have trouble comprehending that concept of fractional numbers. It's hard to store that and near impossible to store that in binary without some sort of trick. And so that's why you end up with imprecision, because computers are just estimating the fractional. They're not actually accurate on the fractional. They're estimating it. And so if you deal with decimal math, you're inviting issues. So just be aware of that. So yeah, we can guarantee that all monetary items and systems are stored as ints, and then they just do some formatting to showcase it as dollars and cents. So private int, what's the new price? Awesome.
What's interesting is like when you're measuring voltage. Now you have a decimal point. Now,
Yeah.
how are they measuring voltages?
It would be good to know that, because that's something you got to wonder, because voltage though has to have precision. That is a precision-based thing, that it can go very deep. So it is one of the things you have to wonder, how much are they, what are they evaluating? How are they evaluating it? And how is it being recorded? How is it being stored or versus displayed?
So the
Like even-
precision is just not as great as this. That's what
I have to
think.
wonder that about the scale I have too. I have a scale
Yeah.
that shows in decimals, but is it actually storing, is the number in the background in the actual chip a floating number, or is it a long decimal that just then has formatting performed on it and math performed on it to then display it in a human way? You still could probably store that as a whole number.
So then in things for like crypto and currency,
Mhm.
I guess.
Oh yeah,
exchanges.
Bitcoin is, yeah, I can guarantee that
so
100%. I've
that is
I've worked
then-
with Bitcoin. I know that Bitcoin's, or at least not Bitcoin, sorry. Ethereum, I did. Ethereum and ADA Cardano, both of them. So Ethereum and ADA Cardano both store their money as their lowest value. ADA Cardano stores their funds as loveless. And so even though you see 1.7 ADA, they're actually
Yeah.
seeing 1.1, they're seeing 1,700,000 loveless. The Ethereum does a Satoshi as well. They have a Satoshi, and the Bitcoin has a Satoshi, and that's what's actually stored in the blockchain itself. You don't see a decimal, you see a full number. Yep, 100%. They do not store them in fractionals. We display them in fractionals because it's good for the human eye, but we do not store it like that. So 100%.
So mathematically, it's always best to have like a lowest.
The lowest denominator. Yep.
Yeah.
And to store your numbers in the highest precision you want. So if you want to be 10 thousandths, a 1 millionth position, your number is 1 million times longer than you want it to be. And you start there. And then when you want it to display, you divide it by 1 million to then get the decimal point you want. Very good stuff. Good question. Yeah, great bringing it to that. Yeah, that one I can say as just someone who is getting into the crypto stuff and coding in it with both Solidity and Haskell. I've seen that they store it in their lowest denominator, not as a fractional. So cool. Yeah, private and price. Any other attributes we want to use?
I think product ID is a good one.
I could do a product ID, sure. What
I would store it as a string.
A string, good. Any reasoning for it?
Well, then you can use letters, and then it won't throw an error in case you type in something that's not a number.
True. You don't talk about
Plus-
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, plus within the product ID, you don't typically do any math on it.
True. And we can also have
If that's
preceding
leading
zeros.
zero, leading
That
zero.
too. Yep. Exactly what I was just about to say, Keith. Nice job jumping in on that. Perfect. Yeah, we can also have preceding zeros in our ID. And so we can have a 000785001 as our product ID if we want. So there's a ton of reasons why the ID can be a string. Cool. Awesome. Anything else?
Description.
Do a description, sure. So some of you may think to do DESC because that's a common abbreviation for description. In certain systems, that could be fine. If you're trying to follow like extreme clean code, you would actually write that out. So one thing you would want to do is be aware of the company you're with and what they prefer. Are they okay with common abbreviations, or are they a strict clean code company that wants very descriptive, go figure, variable names? So always bank that with the company you're working with. While it may be more annoying to type, as you guys have become more aware, you do have the predictive text, so it's unlikely you'll have to type the entire word description because you'll get the predictive text for it. But that's one thing you want to just be aware of. This is definitely more clean code, whereas this is still fine. It's okay, but it's definitely a little less readable. This is considered bad. Not bad, just not clean code. It is considered shorthand and meant for saving storage and stuff like that. Cool. I think that's a good start for product. We can always add more things to product as we think of them, but that can be a good start for product. Okay. Let's create our constructor. Name, price. Oop, I need to put data types. So. Description like that. There you go. Extra space. Good. We'll just do the simple stuff. This name. Good name. Price. Price. This ID. ID. And now this description. Good. Good stuff.
How do we automatically create it again?
What's that? I actually don't know the auto creation for that one.
Freddie?
I don't know the
Command
shortcut for the
It's alt
constructor.
insert.
Alt insert. Oh, I don't like that. Get that practice in. Speed up your
I
typing.
did type it out. I was
Good.
just, now that it's all insert.
But I'm fine if you use that. If you find that I'm starting to type a little faster, you can go at it. So if you need to use that to keep up, I'm not too opposed to it. Just at some point, you do want to make sure you are practicing once in a while, typing it out. Don't, like I said, don't rely too heavily on the auto stuff. Otherwise, you'll forget how to do it yourself. So the product. All right. And so far, that's really all we need, right? We can argue that maybe we might need to be able to get the name, maybe we need the price, maybe we need the ID, maybe we need the description, but we don't know yet where and how we need it. So for the moment, we are not going to put those items in. Just because we assume it, let's just save ourselves some effort. Only code what we need. The one thing we can do though is we can do the toString, so we can display the product, right?
Yeah.
Let's do a override. We're going to use the override. And this could be a nice thing to do again. Are you required to do this? No, this is an annotation. It's meant for you and for the compiler over the IDE to let you know, hey, I'm trying to override something. So if I don't override something, let me know that what I just wrote below this is not actually overriding something. Because if I don't type it right, I want to know that I didn't successfully override. I'm intending to override something. I want to. So that's what that does for us. It'll let us know that we maybe mistyped or mismatched something. And that'll let us know, oh, let's check on this. And is this what I actually want? It gives you that quick little alert, like, did I do this right? So it's a useful little annotation. So, string to string. As soon as you do that, you'll see that the override goes away. It's happy because it says, yep, you are overriding. But it's right now still yelling at us because we haven't returned a string yet. So for the time being, I like to do this again to make it happy. And minimum that, or what I tend to sometimes do to start is do string output equals empty string, return output. That's a very common process that I go through with the toString method. I'm going to most likely add a bunch of stuff to a single string that I want to then return. And so by doing this, it allows me to then put stuff together. So now I get to decide myself, what is the purpose of this toString? So I'm going to return a toString. I can either have this two, how do I want to word this right? So there's two people that could be viewing this data. Who are the two people? When I do the string. Especially if I'm planning to display this information, especially with a grocery store system. There are two, you can argue three. Go ahead.
Whoever's using the console or system.
Correct. And so who could be using the console or slash system? Who are the people?
The admin and the customer.
Admin, customer, and maybe if you want to argue, you could also say a cashier. So you could say the developer, me. There's the cashier who's not a technical person, but is using it, but is still part of the company. And then you have the customer who is just there to buy stuff. And so part of us can then decide, well, who is going to be looking at this? How do I want to format the data? As a developer, I could put this very, very code-like. For the cashier, I could still keep it fairly technical or fairly business looking, fairly formatted as a business sense with like the curly bracket and the items and this. With a user, I want to be very kind of like English speaking, right? Like this item is worth this much, blah, 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 right? And so that's the thing you also want to keep in mind as a developer when you're programming something is, how do I want to format this and who's going to see it? In the beginning, who cares, make it simple, but that is something you want to keep in mind. So who do we want to code this for?
Cashier.
Cashier? All right, I'm going to do it this way then. Let's do the curly bracket, and we'll do name. That's what I'm going to do, plus name, plus. I'm going to use the pipe symbol, which is that key that the backslash is part of. So don't get that. Oh, yeah, why am I doing that? You guys use the or operator pipe symbol. So or operator. So the single line. Because I feel like that's a little more obvious than a comma. So I like that for people. It tends to give a little bit more of a separation than a comma does. So we got that. Name, we got price. looking at this, so I'm thinking now that I see I have ID next, but I'm starting to think maybe ID should be first. What do you think? I know you had the name first, but probably better do the ID first, because that's something I'm gonna be searching by, right? Or we do ID first. Here.
So ID in the real world would be like the barcode, right?
In a way, yeah. The barcode would scan and become the ID, yeah. That way we can easily search by it. Got that. And last up, we'll finish up with description. And in this case, actually, I think I'm going to leave the description out of the toString because I think it's going to be a general toString, not a descriptive toString, right? Or this is because the description is something that could be fairly long, right? It could be a fairly decent amount of text, not a guaranteed short blurb. It could be like a good paragraph about the product. So I'm thinking we keep the description out, and we can have another kind of display details method later on if we wanted it, right?
I'm sorry, can I just ask something that's gonna come back a little? Why do I need to do an override? What's the override?
Any of the other students that have been here a little while want to take a shot at explaining that first?
Well,
Why are
what
we
you
over-
just said was that it was a tool that that helps you see if you're actually overriding something or not. So it's just kind of a way to check if your method's going to override it or not. Because if not,
Oh,
you
I
have to
see.
override it.
To check
Now
if
here's another-
there's already something stored on the variable before you actually override it.
Kind of. Someone else, why are we overriding the toString though? Why are we overriding this method?
It is because I think all classes and objects has a built-in toString method, and we're overriding it to display what we want it to show.
So I think, I can't remember which one of you two had it, but one of you, when you printed, I think you tried to print a player's name, you had the object with a certain like numbers after it, right? When you print the object by in your liar's dice, you saw that kind of like encoded object number, right? It had something at object name and then a couple of numbers, right?
Yes.
That's the default toString method that all objects have. So every object you create inherits from the object class, which has some methods already in it. So if we have this like this, if I go back to main for a second here, this main, and I do product, product. Ah, dang it. That's a product. If I do prod and I hit the dot, there's some things here that I didn't put in, did I? Did I create a wait method?
No.
Did I create an equals method?
It inherits from the regular string methods
The
that
object
Java
class,
has.
yeah. Yep, well, the object class. So any class you make is an object, and that itself is a class. So that's why everything's a class. So we have the object class, and then every object you make inherits from that class. If it doesn't have its own if it doesn't inherit from another class instead. So if I was to type extends here, it would just inherit from that one, which then of course inherits from object. Since this one doesn't have an extends command on it, it's going to default to extending the object class. And so it brings in a bunch of items from the object class by default, which is all these. So anything with the M is a method, anything with that is a field that we have. And so there's a whole bunch of things that this object has that we didn't even implement. It's just inherited from the general object class. And so toString is one of those. Whenever you do, like for example, S out, and you put prod in there, that print line needs a string, right? It needs to print a string. And so what it does is it triggers the object to use the toString method of the object. And your default behavior is to print the address or the pointer, so to speak.
It was called the reference. It's not the, is it the reference?
Yep, pointer reference. Yep, memory reference. Yep. What we're doing now is we're telling it to override that default behavior and use ours instead. And this is part of the polymorphism system. And so this is something you want to learn about in polymorphism. So you can have a method defined in a parent class, and any child class that says, you know what, I do that differently, can then override that behavior and say, hold on, I know we have that there already. I do this slightly different, so I'm going to override it and do it this way. While I
Okay,
can
got
still
it.
inherit everything else. So, yep, overriding is one of the two tools you have. The other one is overloading. And that's where you have two methods of the same name, but different parameters.
Understand that it works without the override actually being there.
Yeah, you don't, like I said, yeah, the main thing is we don't need that command there because it's not needed in order to override. You automatically override something by just having the same return type, same variable, same method name, and the same parameters. As long as the method name and parameters match, then you're automatically overriding it. What this annotation does is if I, let's say, misspell this and do to sting, it's going to let me know I didn't override anything.
Oh, okay.
That's what this annotation does. Like, hey, you actually didn't override anything, just so you know. You told me you wanted to, but you didn't. And that can help me to realize, oh, I made a mistake. That's what the annotation does for me. It helps me to realize I goofed because I intended to override something because I know that there's a method I want to override, and it can let me know that I did. Make sense?
Yeah, I got it.
Awesome. Just like that. Right. Now let's actually do a real one. So give me a real product we want to store.
Apple. I don't know, no
Right,
one's
so then
speaking.
Standard apple. How much for our apple?
89 cents.
Yeah.
What kind of apples are you buying?
Good ones.
The question is that
Organic?
cheap or is that
Organic?
expensive?
Yeah, I don't even know.
Is that a statement of these are cheap, I want them, or those are expensive apples? Where are you getting them?
It's cheap.
No, I mean those are
Yeah,
like
it's
those
pretty
are
cheap.
cheap apples.
I thought they
Is it
were,
cheap
yeah. I was like,
apples?
nice. I thought so, yeah.
I have no idea. Last time I went to the grocery store was in 1987.
Damn it.
There you go. Let's see.
Hey, it
gonna
would be
our-
way cheaper actually.
Yeah, they're way cheaper, right?
Yep, that would be the price back then, yeah. What's our ID for our apple?
1, 0, 1.
Yeah, we'll do 0, 1. We'll do a 3-digit at least. 0, 1, and then a description.
Red apple.
Red apple, I like it. Good. So let's go ahead and see. So what I actually want to do first actually is actually showcase this working for those who are new. I'm actually going to comment out our toString method quick. And I'm going to print the product. I'll hit play. I know some of you are like, this is kind of a refresher for you, but just go with it.
I like it.
Oh, I did the main from main. Sorry, wrong main. I want to click this play button so that it adds it. So I click that, run main from the grocery store. There we go. And so this is that thing you've seen before, right, guys?
Yeah.
This is our reference pointer. So it's a pointer to the location in memory and what it is. So it's saying, hey, at this location is the com grocery store products product at memory address 4617C264, which is hexadecimal. So you got that. If I then put the override back in, I'm going to change nothing else. I just now have an override that says the toString is going to print like this. Now take a look at what happens.
Nice.
Sound cool, right? So that's what this method does. This gives us the ability to pull a string automatically and display it in a nice formatted way. So I have one product, let's add a second product just to make sure it all works. 2. What's our next product?
Orange.
There you go.
Heard orange first. What's our price of an orange?
$5.50.
I almost said,
Damn it.
I almost said an iPad, and then I remember this is a grocery store.
I guess you could argue that maybe a grocery store could have an iPad, but
It's a bag of oranges.
One day technology will become, that widespread. But
hey, Walmart technically has it, and what some people consider Amazon a grocery store now because they have Whole
oh,
Foods
that's
connected.
that's true. Yeah.
So 002, and as Keith just said, why it's 550, we're gonna do bag of what kind of oranges are we gonna do?
Blood oranges.
What is it?
Blood oranges?
Ah, blood oranges. Okay. fun red ones that make you look like you bleed when you cut them up.
Yeah.
Travis, what's so funny? I'm looking at Travis, know what to laugh to, and I'm like, I don't even know why.
Because Keith cracks me up, man.
Ridiculous.
So
That's
from
why.
this, with the IDs, could you create like an ID class for like specific types of like fruits, and like depending on like there are 10 varieties of apples, so they'll all begin with the same ID number and then branch off from that?
100% you could do that.
That's a
And
great
that's actually
idea.
something we're gonna start digging into. So yeah, product seems a little vague, right? Because you guys are being nice and giving me just fruits, but what other what else is a product? And I think technically Sergio there just gave us a hint. I could do I could have an iPad in my store, right? I'm gonna sell that for $2,450. $2,450. So yeah.
Could
Cool.
call
Yeah,
it
the
from
loaded
apples
one.
to apples.
And then a shortcut, by the way, for you guys to be able to do this stuff, if you're, and I think it was Keith again who actually showed this, which is really cool, is the idea of being able to use underscores to in the place of commas, and we recognize.
Yes, big fan of that. I'm like, there's no way in hell that we have to be counting zeros every time, right? And
And then I'm gonna do
You can
the
also
easier
put it
0
at the end.
tonics.
After the 2 zeros and make it look like it's actually dollars.
I know what you're thinking, but again, it's supposed to be treated like can I actually do that? I don't actually know, because I think it might allow it. I thought it was supposed to be only used for commas, but maybe you could put them wherever you want. I never tested that actually. Freddie, have you tested that?
We can test it now.
All right.
You got-
I like that confidence.
You gotta love Freddie.
I saw like, I think like last month, they added that function to JavaScript.
That would be cool. But yeah, new iPad. I'm not gonna say
From what I remember, I think you could just add it anywhere and it's supposed to not do anything. You could even do it to like variable names and
it's
stuff.
like a white space. Yeah, that'd be awesome if they did it like that. That'd be great. Let's see. I think it's good because then we can use it as the decimal and as commas later on. It allows it. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good stuff. And then what we can also do here in our product class, I'm also going to add one more method that I feel like we might like for this. Price. And we're not going to do it not as a int, but as a string. We'll call it display price, sorry. Get display price. This is a price that we want to use for displaying it. And we're going to return, so we're going to do, what is it? Oh, I don't know if I can actually, if I can convert it after doing the math first. Let's see if it'll allow me. See if it'll allow me to do it. We'll do an empty string plus, and then in parentheses, we'll do price divided by 100 with a decimal right here. We're also going to mark this as an F. Ooh, not like that. Sorry. What is it? Float. Ooh. Parentheses for typecasting. Dang it.
Oh,
Typecasting.
typecast, is it working?
Looks like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So we're going to typecast this as a float so we actually get the two decimals. All right. We want to actually keep the decimals this time. Because if we were to just do it like this, what's going to happen? If we don't typecast any of these things or turn any of them into a fractional, what's going to happen?
Rounding,
Yeah, we're not gonna
Is that
get decimal place.
rounding.
Right. Is it going to, ooh, who's saying rounding?
Ready?
Ready says it'll round. Does anyone agree or disagree?
Um,
Cool.
What do you think, Jeremy?
I don't think it'll round because it's not a decimal already.
Remember that in decimal math, you're trying to, in order to round, what do we need to know? In order to
How
round
close it is
something,
to the nearest whole number.
right? So we need to recognize a decimal, right? In order to round, we must recognize a decimal. Do integers recognize what decimals are?
nope.
No, so an integer cannot round. It's one thing you want to remember. So if we do integer map, we're literally lopping off items. So this is actually a cool way to actually lop off 2 digits, just eliminate them. There's some cool use cases for this that you could look into, but the main thing here is, yeah, if we have a number and we divide by 100, the last 2 digits are just gone instantly. And we don't want that. We actually still want them, right? And so we actually want to make sure we keep those. So we're just going to do, as long as one of them is a decimal, it should actually do normal, it should actually do decimal math. So we'll do that. And over here, instead of doing price, we're actually going to do get display price. Let's see how that looks. Close. There is another tool we could use called, let's see. Actually, we actually just switch this back. Let's do a cool thing called, oh, maybe not. Maybe, can I do this? Do we know if Java has toFixed? Anyone know if Java has that? I've actually been testing that myself right now. Oh, right, that does a double by default. If anyone's unsure, how can we find out if it does or not? And this is what I want to show. I want actually to show how I do this. So this is the thing I know. So I know JavaScript has something called toFixed. It'll take a number and it'll allow me to say how many decimals I want to see. I can do a number dot toFix2 to say I want 2 decimals, right? And so I can now do a Google search with that knowledge saying Java toFixed, because I can guarantee I'm not the first person to want to do something that's gone from JavaScript to Java and knows that a toFix method in JavaScript exists. So Java toFix double. And there you go. See it, JavaScript toFix equivalent in Java. Exactly what I want, right? And so they have something called set scale. Interesting.
Let's just say
Big decimal. I don't want big decimal though.
What about
Only way of doing it. Go ahead.
what about number format?
Number format.
Yeah, that's I use something similar to display my balance in the store.
Is that this thing?
Uh,
Am I screwing now?
I forget what you call those things. It's a class, right? Number format is a
Yeah,
class. You can
decimal
use.
format. It's called. It's showing me decimal format, not number format.
I mean, I'm sure there's one decimal format, but for I think, oh, that might work actually.
What package is it part of?
Java.text. Try decimal or number. It's with a capital N.
What is it?
Decimal format with a
text.
capital this.
Yeah, text dot number format with a capital N.
Number format. You try that
Yeah.
one. Maybe it's a. Hopefully that one will be a static one, because decimal format I need to instantiate it. So now I can actually change this to string.
Let me see how I used it. So it has.
Looks like we do have to do an instance.
What about get currency instance? With it. Yes, and that should format it to like money. Oh, it takes a long.
Oh, you have a double here. You have a double.
Okay.
You can take a double. That should work, actually.
Try that.
That'd be awesome if that works. That's gonna be good for you guys to have. Maybe give us the dollar symbols. Look at that fanciness. Thank you, Sergio. There you guys go. So you deal with numbers now and stuff. You can actually have some real fun with that. Number formatter. I didn't know Java had that built in. That's nice. I have to use something called, I think it's method in no, that's dates I'm thinking of. There's like a formatting tool in Java that's a package you have to bring in that's not part of JavaScript. So I'm the two fix, yeah, I wouldn't, if I want the dollar symbol too, I'd have to do something completely different, and we get the commas too, so beautiful, there we go. That's a real good look, right?
Good.
Awesome.
Cool. For the moment, actually, what we're going to do here is just have a little bit of fun. We're actually going to turn this private for the moment, even though it's likely we'll want to use this elsewhere. I just want to make sure people understand that even methods can be private. We're only using this by another internal method, and we're not having a plan to showcase the display price anywhere else yet, so we can put it here for now. We'll probably end up making it public, but just want to make sure you guys see again that methods themselves can be private if there's no intent for those to be used outside the class. It's just utility or meant for readability. So they can be made private as well.
Well, the only way we really find out about this stuff is through Google. I mean,
100%. You find something you want to do, and then you Google it.
but there's no logic in your head that goes, wait, I can try to look for this, that actual line, like number format, like nothing would go through your head to go, let me try to look.
Unless I had something to hint that that could be a thing, no. And
Yeah.
that would be something I would have to have some hints, some history with. Now, yes, I might actually end up to, if I didn't know about the two fix method, I would like to say, if I know about the term formatting numbers, because of printf, you guys have that printf thing. If you knew the F stand
Yeah.
for format, then you might think to type format a number to 2 decimals or format number into currency. If you were to type that into Google, you would instantly get the number format. So that's something to consider. My way of looking at it, which again, probably would work fine with my decimal format, probably would have worked as well. And that was just me using, again, I want to make sure that you understand that you can use your prior knowledge in other languages. If you know there's a method in another language that does a certain action that you now want to do in a new language, type that in, looking for the equivalent of that in this new language you're working with. That's a common Google search. And so you'll find someone that can give you that item that's like, oh, here's the equivalence you're looking for. Because most programming languages are doing similar stuff. Now, there's nothing that can tell that can, unless you're familiar with the language itself, that can send you the right path. No one's expecting you to know all the packages that the text system has, or all the importable packages that util has. So no one's expecting that.
So is there a, like, so it does, it displays it perfectly. Is there a reason why you wouldn't use it once you know it? Is there a reason why you would, like, is there another, is it intensive on memory? Is it something else? Is there some other reason why you wouldn't use it? Maybe if you had to use the number again, I don't know. No, maybe not, because it's display.
Yeah, personally, I'm not thinking of anything that I can think of, that I would think of. I can't think of a reason myself, other than the fact that you would want to display it a different way.
Yeah.
If you want to display your currency in a different way, then yes, you would want to use it, because it's going to format a specific currency of American dollars. If you want to display the currency of yen, you'd probably have to make your own version of it, or find another converter that includes other
You
currencies.
can use locale and change
Locale.
your.
I was wondering about that. I wasn't sure if that was built in number format. They had locale, but
Yeah, well, it's automatically, I think, locale root or wherever it is from.
that could be cool.
But you can
I
put it
can't really
inside of
test
the
that,
get
so
currency
that's an
instance.
assumption we're making.
Yeah, you put it inside of get currency instance inside of the parentheses.
Really?
Pops
Yeah,
when you're
you
typing it
put
in.
locale.
You can find a local. Nice. All right, cool. Yeah, you can set the locale and then they'll format in yen probably, or others, or probably the DOP from the bank. And so, there's a lot of built-in stuff. Remember, Java's been around for a while. Don't forget that.
Yeah.
So, do you think you still need that that decimal after the 100 on line 19?
Yes, because again, if I don't keep this will do integer base map and then convert it to a double. And so if I do that, it's going to warn me probably that it's going to be.
I was about to say I'm having an issue here until I noticed that 0 there. Because my Apple was 89 cents and it was displaying 0 as a price. And I'm like, what is happening?
You lost your decimal because integer based math will lop it off.
Yeah.
Okay.
We do this dot here to force the system to do decimal based math. Integer divided by decimal will result in decimal. Decimal divided by decimal, decimal. Decimal divided by integer, decimal. Integer divided by integer, integer. So that's something to keep in mind.
The decimal
pretty
rules.
much the better way of looking at it is X operator Y will always use the more precise data type. So whatever the more precise data type out of the two is the one it will use. So the same, it'll use this, it'll be the same. But if they're two different, if you have data type X and data type Y and the operator in the middle, it will always go to the most precise data type. Sound good? So if I did a long divided by a double, I'm gonna get a long, I believe. Wait, long, I think is integer actually. Yeah, I think long is whole numbers. Never
Yeah,
mind.
long is integer.
Float versus double. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
So float versus double, it'll still return most likely a double because it's more precise. It can store a larger number. If it does a float divided by a double or float times double, that can, and it stores it as a float, there's potential for loss of data because of not enough bytes. So
I'll do a quick
oh,
Gabriel.
rabbit hole there.
Can I do a quick Gabriel impression here?
Go
I'll
for it.
borrow,
Of course.
I'll borrow two of you guys for 30 minutes.
I mean, 3 hours.
Or Matt and John.
Yeah.
Sergio, you would have been missing all this.
Yeah.
It's good. I guess maybe it's a good thing you stayed. You would have been missing all this fun stuff.
Yes.
All right.
Breaking
I gotta-
people's systems. You'd be breaking people's systems, Sergio.
There you go. Oh, geez. Be nice to Sergio. But so yeah, now here we see a slight problem with having this very generic product class. We have apples, oranges, and iPads stored the same way. We'd probably want more data for like the fruits and different data from the fruits versus the iPads, right? What is a property of fruits that they have that an iPad doesn't have?
It's edible.
Yeah.
Expiration
I'm sure
date?
this is- what's that?
Bruisability.
Hold on. Bruisability. I don't know if that's proper field. Really, what'd you
Expiration
say?
date.
Maybe
I
an
mean,
expiration date?
that's something that they.
No, they share that.
Apple would say they do, yes. Ironically, Apple, yeah. Apple would say that their products do have an expiration date. They won't admit that, but they definitely believe they should.
Planet
You could also
obsolescence,
do
man.
like organic, right? Is organic. So fruits and stuff have an organic property to them, but iPads don't have an is organic property. So that's something you could get into. So we could have the separation of Apple of these items, so we can have those other properties. And so definitely we want more specific items. And so the very first thing I'm going to do is, of course, the fruit subclass. So in our products, let's go to Java class fruit. Fruit will extend product class. Blech. All right, it's yelling at us because the two new students, do you have any ideas why it might be yelling at us? If you've done any sort of extension yet, any sort of inheritance yet?
Because you haven't brought in the constructor
Good.
for
Yep.
the current class.
100%. You're right. Yeah, we didn't do the constructor yet. So we do need to create we can, of course, type it out ourselves, but again, to save time, because that's not what this class is about today, we're going to use the built-in system to create constructor matching super. So we'll bring that in. At the current moment, we're still able to keep the private fields because we're not actually accessing any of those items directly yet from the fruit class. So do be aware of that. We aren't actually accessing any of these fields yet, so the private property can still fit because we're accessing the fields through the super. We bring them in, we send them to super, and then super, or this method, is the one that actually updates it, and that's within the class. So that's why we can still do this without making these protected or public yet, because we're still not accessing it outside the product class. We're still only modifying these fields within its own ownership, within its own main class. Still allowed. Let's go ahead and come up with some of those unique items. So what's our first unique fruit field?
Organic.
Which one do we want to do? What's that?
Organic,
All right.
right?
Yeah, what data type do we want to use that for?
It seems like a Boolean, right?
Like that? Boolean, which you can also just do bool. Boolean. With the non-class, we don't need the Boolean class, we just want the Boolean primitive. Our private Boolean is organic. And just for those new students, I tend to like to make sure that my Boolean fields sound like a question or sound like a yes, no statement, right? So is organic, has something, is something, any of those. So it's very much part of the clean code concept of I read that and it yells, it kind of speaks to me that this is going to be like a yes or no, true or false kind of item, right? Smart variable names. One more field.
I mean, I guess what I meant earlier by bruisability was grocery stores keep track of like the
We call it-
softer produce.
We call it quality, maybe, like how bruised it is, or fragility.
No, I mean
maybe?
like whether it can be like fragility, like whether it can be squished or
I see what you're
like
saying.
how you
Okay.
pack it and stack and all that. Like potatoes
never heard
are
the term
ranked fairly
bruisability.
high and can be like literally tossed anywhere.
That makes sense.
Versus bananas.
I would love to see someone just tossing potatoes around. It'd be fun. I can see what you're saying. So how do we want to track that?
Also a
I feel
boolean.
like there's,
Could do Boolean.
I mean, but there are
Um,
levels to it.
I was going to say, yeah, could,
So
you
it's
could probably argue
possible.
that, yeah. Because I would think, like, just taking into consideration, would you say that with these 3 fruits or 4 fruits I'm going to give you, is there just a yes or no on bruisability? We have potato, we have apple, we have tomato, and we have grapes or bananas. Are they all, is it just a yes, no process, or is there varying levels there?
I would say there's varying levels. Like say, for example, on the far end, you would have like a coconut, which like you can literally step on
Didn't
versus
think of that one.
a grape.
True. And we definitely have, yeah, you have those hard ones like potato, coconut, those things that are really hard to damage. You have the middle level ones that I would say would be probably like apples and stuff. They can take a little bit. And then, yeah, you have a banana that the second you put any sort of pressure on it, it's gone. Right? So how would we gauge that?
How do they gauge it at the grocery store?
This is a thought experiment, just taking ideas. How would, if you were the one creating the program for the first time, what would be some ideas you might come up with and how to gauge that?
I'll use 3
Could you use
different
a number or
booleans.
something?
Low, medium, high.
So could do that. And what data type would that be, Travis?
String.
So you could do a string. What other items could we use? I think, Mike, were you about to say something?
So you could use like a number system, just like ranking how bruisable it is.
Number system could work. So let's think about it. Let's think about that logically for a second. We have the string system, low, medium, high, and the number system. What could be some benefits from one versus the other? One versus the other. Why would we want to use, let's say, like the number over the string or the string over the number?
If we use a number over the string, perhaps over time, certain fruits could get more bruisable.
That could be a good argument. But I wouldn't say that's a benefit for the number system because you could always just change the value of the string too. So I don't think that justifies whether we choose the number or the string differently.
The
feel
string
like
is more
I would
user
say
friendly.
that
Yeah, I feel like
There's an
low,
argument.
medium, high. You can just kind of look at it. It's like low
So we could, yeah.
bruisability or high bruisability.
So we could argue that that is very nice for the user side of it. So it's very user friendly. So there's a pro for the string. Any advantages to the number?
say if you were to put it on like a scale of 1 to 10, like you said, it's easier to, or I forgot, was it Matt who said it's easier than to track progression of like people, even on a user-friendly side, people understand like, oh, that's a 1 or that's a 10 in terms of whether softness or hardness. And it can just move up and down on that scale. Whereas you keep on having to create like newer categories for the strings.
Well, I guess here's a good way of I think I know what you're going for. Let me see this. So strings low, medium, high. I'm gonna add med, low. High. Med. One that's preceding is one that's more prominent. So this would be the order. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. How many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have 7. So is there anything that tells me programmatically the order of these? can I programmatically know that low med is below med low?
Couldn't you assign a number to it? Yeah.
I would need to assign a
Still
number.
wording.
This, right? Is there anything programmatically that tells me that medium is lower than high?
The name itself.
Oh, but wait, isn't medium alphabetically higher than H, but yet L is alphabetically lower than medium?
Oh, you're talking about alphabetically. Oh,
Well, yeah, because otherwise, how would we program the system to know that? How do you program a computer to know that medium is greater than low, or that high is greater than mid?
oh yeah,
Right?
it's a pain. Yeah.
Right.
You
So
could
we're trying to
assign it-
say
you
that
could
this
assign
is
it
the
to a
statement.
Separate number, but it would be redundant.
Right. See what I'm saying there? So that's
Yeah.
this was really kind of fun about this stuff. You're doing this kind of thought experiment of like trying to consider things. This is what we're trying to tell the system in a computer that this is how the system works. How do we make sure the computer knows that this statement is true, right? Whereas in this system,
Pretty simple.
it's already true, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so it depends on if we need to do this system. So this is also part of it. Now, again, this is only a pro though. This is only a positive thing if we think we might end up doing this. If we are going to run comparisons, right? If we're never going to run comparisons, it doesn't matter, right? So that's one thing to keep in mind. And so for this, by the way, there really is no right or wrong answer. It depends on our use case. And again, it depends on whether or not we're even going to do this sort of comparison kind of concept thing, right? So the main goal here is just, I want you guys to think critically about how we can store things, the same concept in different ways, 2 different ways, and what are the pros for both. This is definitely more user-friendly in the concept of being able to read it very quickly. Low visibility versus high visibility versus, we would just say low med instead of having both of them. We can just have the 2 instead of the weird ones. That's more accurate of what you probably see. So this is definitely more user-friendly, but we could also just do a quick little method that says, we do in the 7, 8, 9, 10, we could say that low is 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10, right? We could just have a method that converts the number to the user-friendly format, correct?
Yeah.
So there's an argument to say for any of these, really. Right?
I would say go with the numbers first, and then if you need it, if you need to spell it out.
But interesting discussion, right? We
Yeah.
see the thought process we can go through to come up with these things and think about them.
So
But I will say,
wouldn't this copy as well, like the money system where you're using the lowest common denominator or lowest denominator?
the most, I'm not sure what you're exactly mean, but like the simplest form.
Yeah, the
You're trying to
simplest
say?
one when you said in terms of like using cents instead of dollars. This would mimic
Yeah.
that in a way where it breaks it down to numbers for the computer, but then as you go up in users or in terms of who's using it, then you can break it, you can put it into more user-friendly terms.
In a way, kind of, it's very similar to our money system, yeah, because we store the money as cents. But then when we want to display it to the user, we convert it to dollars. So same thing here, we store our visibility in the computer as numbers. We know how, so if we ever decide to, again, this is kind of being that, we'll be down a rabbit hole, but if we ever decide, you know what, we're gonna have a robot system load the truck, and we want to make sure that our low visibility items 1s are on the bottom and our 10s are on the top, right? So the high visibility items are up on the top where they're less likely to get bruised, and the things that can take damage on the bottom where they're safe, right? We don't want the robot to accidentally put the bread on the bottom, do we?
I can totally see Amazon doing something like that.
Honestly, now that you say that, they probably do that. Now that I think about it, they probably have a durability
Actually,
system.
they do, and most grocery programs or most grocery stores have a system of packing, especially like Walmart and Safeway and Kroger's. All of them have
Yeah.
a system down in terms of how they deliver their food.
Yeah, I'm sure there's
And like
yeah.
certain loads will have to wait if they have too many like lighter loads. Those loads will have to wait on the side until heavier loads come through that they can pack and stack them on.
Good to know. See, again, problem solving, everything you're learning in here about even just code can be applied to other avenues and other things. So very, very cool. And the better you get at this logical deductive reasoning and problem solving system, it's going to help you pretty much anywhere. So cool. Very good stuff. A little sidetrack there. So we're thinking int for our, what do we want to call it? Bruisability, fragility, what do we want to call it? Strength,
Visibility.
bruisability. All right. What is spell bruise?
UI. S. Ability.
Doesn't recognize the word.
Not a word. It is
Let me
now.
Google it.
That's
Yep.
how I would spell it.
It's fine. All right, it's a word.
What the heck?
All right, that's fine. We'll just go ahead and tell it to add it to the dictionary.
Don't think it's the right word for this case though.
Using medical terms now.
Yeah. Again, we could, there's a couple, you could do bruisability, fragility, strength, whatever you want to call it. Doesn't really matter. We're gonna keep it. I'm fine with it. Cool.
Hardness.
Hardness, that could be an easier one to read. Do we want to switch to hardness? Or we like bruisability? What do you think, Mike?
Oh no.
Switch to hardness, it doesn't matter.
I like visibility, actually.
Because there's a hardness, just make it easier. on the
Hardness.
Oh, man.
What's your
eyes. Make it easier on ourselves.
what's your level of hardness?
There you go. Oh, jeez. Moving
With
right
or without
along.
meds. Oh, we're recording.
Oh no. Oh god damn it.
Yeah, Sergio.
Look what you did.
Get out of here.
So what I want to do first, I'm going to actually do two. I want to also just do a quick example of overloading for the two new students. So in this case, we're going to say that by default, if I tell you guys a fruit, you're going to automatically assume what about the organic status of a fruit. If I hand you a fruit, you're going to assume what about the fruit's organic status. You're just at a random person's house, they hand you a fruit, well, not a random, a friend. They hand you a fruit. What are you going to assume about that fruit's organic status?
Not
Yeah,
because
right?
yeah, you default logic is that it's not going to be organic unless it's told that it is organic.
Yeah, if you ask someone for an apple, are you guaranteed they're gonna, what are they most likely going to give you? The non-organic version, right? You have to, you usually have to ask for the organic version. So in this case, we can have a fruit that doesn't take the is organic flag. We'll take a hardness flag. Yes. We'll do the is organic equal to false. And this dot hardness equal to hardness. So we're saying that if we add a fruit to the system, why is it yelling at me? This should be fine. Oh, right, sorry. First line, super must be first. My bad. My bad. I'm like, why are they yelling at me? All right, that thing. That thing, right. Anyway, so in this case, yes, if somebody hands us the fruit and they leave out the organic status out of it, we're going to assume the organics is it's not organic. But we want to make sure we can add an organic fruit, so we're going to also do another one. Fruit. With all the same fields, plus one more is organic. So this way, if they tell us what the item is, whether it's organic or not, we'll then take their word for what they say it is. Nope, that's not one. All right, sanity check for students. I did is organic here, but I had to do this is organic here. Why the difference? I did is organic here. Well, I did this hardness equals hardness here. Why the differences between this? Why does one not need this, but the other one does? Sanity check. Make sure we understand the difference. We understand that need for this. Again.
On the first one, they don't give you the information, so you just assume it's false.
But why did I not use the this keyword in front of this? But yet I did use the this keyword in front of this one.
Because you're not giving any information to it. You're just setting the variable.
You're on the right path. There's a little more specific of an answer. Come on, the rest of
So
code 12.
when you're instantiating that first fruit option, the organic field is automatically set to false. But for the second one, since it is part of the argument, part of the parameters, you're assigning whatever they input to the is organic field.
You are right. I'm trying to. I want to see if I can get a little more terms of art explanation, if that's a word to use. So one of the existing students, come on, you should know this reasoning. Why do we need this on this one?
Because
But not here.
the second one is an overloaded constructor.
Not because it's overloading. That's not the reason why I need this keyword here, but didn't need it here.
Oh, it's because that separates the argument from the variable itself.
Right. There's one keyword I'm looking for, but again, I'll give it to you. You're saying it right. So yeah, in this one we have an is organic. Go ahead, Jeremy. Try it.
Was it the scope of the
Yeah,
field?
scope. And there's a term, there's a keyword I'm looking for. So in this one, we have a argument. I did like that term of art. So we have the is organic argument and the local variable or the local field is organic. So we have the conflicting items. The local field is organic and the argument is organic. And Java needs to know which one I mean. If I just type is organic here, I'm now also referring to the argument. So similar again, how he talked about how he goes the least related item. Eridan, if I say, hey, can you run to Stop and Shop? Sorry, can you run to 7-Eleven and grab me a NOS? Which 7-Eleven are you going to go to?
Well,
Same question to you, Manny. Manny, head to the 7-Eleven and grab me a NOS. Which 7-Eleven are you going to?
The closest one to me.
Right, the closest one to you, right? But if I say, hey, I'll go back to Eridan now for this. So Eridan, I need the purple NOS, and I know the one over on Main Street has the purple NOS in stock. Could you head over and get me one of those? Which 7-Eleven are you going to now?
the one that you pointed to.
Exactly, and that's what the difference here is. Java is always going to, when you don't give it the this keyword, it's going to go to the closest one possible. In this constructor, the closest one is the field because there is no argument or local variable in this method that has the same name. Over here, since there's two, we're now telling it, hey, go to Main Street or go to the object is organic and save it to the local is organic and save the contents of the argument to the local field. And that's what the version this is. So always be aware of that in your code. If there is no conflict with a variable name, do not add the this. That's going to look intro. I've seen that pop in a couple times, so I wanted to double check on this again. So, and I think I may have forgot to mention some of the gradings that I've done. So I might try to go back and remember who had that, but I've seen it pop up once or twice where we had the this keyword when it's not needed. So double check on that. If there is no conflict in the variable in the field, don't include this. Because it's not a bad thing. It's not going to hurt you technically, but it doesn't benefit you and it can help you. It can cause you to look more junior level than, not junior, entry level than you intended. So these are just things that look very intro. And these are things we're trying to slowly weed out. Remember, I want you guys to look like you're bordering on that junior developer level, that they hire you and you just need a couple of weeks and you'll be junior developer. All right, cool. So that's one little sanity check. Awesome. So we have that.
Gonna ask, why not use it in the first one? Now I
Okay.
get why.
Ah.
Because it works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does totally work. You can definitely do it. Because it's again telling me, I'm just telling him to go to the closest one to him. This would be me just like telling you,
For no
Gabe,
reason.
to
Yeah,
go
extra
specifically to the one
information.
that's closest to you, right?
Yeah, extra information. You don't need it.
Exactly. So for those of you here, I live right in downtown Providence. The closest 7-Eleven to me is right across the street from JWU. This way, what I just did here on line 8 would be one of you telling me, hey, can you run to the 7-Eleven across from JWU and grab this for me? Like, I was gonna go there anyway, but sure. It works, but it was unnecessary, right? It's kind of the concept. You telling me to go to the one that's closest to me isn't gonna change anything, but it's almost like, that was unnecessary. I'm gonna go that one anyway. So, yep, 100%. It's fine. It just like, that's why I said it looks entry level because unnecessary typing. Cool. So we got that fruit. Let's go ahead and test this quick. Let's head back here to main. What we're gonna do is we're actually gonna have a little fun with this. I'm actually gonna make these, I wanna keep these 2 products, but I'm actually gonna call them fruit now. Oh wait, I can't do that right. That's different. So I changed the fruit, but look what, well, maybe I can. So note how it's yelling me for this. Why is it yelling me for here?
Changed.
Right. So I changed the fruit. What's special about the fruit constructor?
It has more parameters.
Yeah, at least one, right? We at least need the hardness. I can include the organic if I want, but I at least need to include the hardness. So what's the hardness of a red apple?
Medium.
So would you say 4 or 5?
Manny knows.
4. I'd say about 4 or 5.
And then which one? And then for the oranges, what's the hardness of an orange?
I'd give it probably it's slightly lower actually than an apple.
I was curious about that. I was thinking like, yeah, an apple feels harder, even though you have the skin on the orange. You could definitely, I feel like you could squeeze an orange easier.
I feel like which one would be easier to crush, like with your hands?
So maybe 3. We'll do 3. Or we maybe increase the 4 to 5 and do this.
Yeah,
But
I
again, it
would
doesn't
think
really matter. Sure, we'll do that. Fine. You're right. 5, 4. It's quick. Doesn't really matter. So now which one of our 2 is organic?
Wait a minute. Wait, no, the orange is definitely should be a higher number than an apple.
So is it a higher number if it's harder, or is it a lower
Yeah.
number if it's harder?
Higher is hardest. So can you crush an apple with your bare hand?
It's good.
Yes.
I can't.
It's good for sure.
Let me go get one.
Can you squish an orange with your bare hand?
I can't.
Really? No.
I'm just kidding.
I would think that'd be easier to crush an orange personally because they're squishy on the inside where
Oh,
an
the
apple's
pears,
hard
all
all the way
right.
through.
I was thinking orange is for sure softer than an apple.
I don't know. Who cares?
All right.
Not important.
Yeah. These details.
That's
So
the
which one of
important
these is
part.
our organic product?
Blood.
Which one?
Doesn't matter.
Apple.
Okay. So yeah, I don't have to type the organic, so we just gonna say true here. So that's how the overload works, by the way. So this is overloading. We have 2 methods with the same name. They both are constructors, but they are constructors themselves are methods. And so the 2 constructors, same name, same identical method, because the parameters are different, we can do different things. And so that's what the overload system is. We can do the exact same constructor, but just whether or not we include the organic, the system will behave differently. And that's part of the polymorphism part of Java. So remember that. Cool.
So
we got
Cliff,
that.
why
So
did it
that's
say- why did it
polymorphism?
say on the fruit section that never used?
1 second on that one. I'm gonna answer that in a second. But Keith, yes, that's polymorphism. Any other additional question on that? 'Cause I think that was a quick
No.
one. Okay, cool. We're just confirming. All right, Mike, what was that question again?
Why did it say that it was never used, the constructor is never used on the fruit side? The fruit class, I mean.
Yeah, constructors are weird. I don't know why it does that. It totally is.
Okay.
I don't know.
Where did it say it?
Right here, it's not saying that I'm not. It says I'm not using the constructor, even
Oh,
though I'm
because it's not
using
lit
it
up?
I
right
think
here.
that's an IntelliJ thing though, to be honest. 'cause
Yeah.
It does weird stuff sometimes.
I'm gonna do a quick check here.
Ooh.
Nope.
Usually to fix it, I just backspace and then just like rewrite it.
On what?
Oh,
there it
there it
goes.
is.
It just
It
popped
just
up.
popped in. Okay, whatever. Oh,
I heard a little
Just make
noise.
it change to me. That was my phone.
The phone fixed it.
Yep. Quiet phone. Buzz. All right, so let's take a look at this. Let's hit play. Currently, what do we see at the moment? It still works, right? So remember,
Yeah.
because fruit extends product, a product can store a fruit. Be aware that we still only have access to those product items. So anything that's public in the product and not public in fruit, we don't have access to. So if I was to just do a quick little test here on fruit, I'm going to do a quick item call for just to showcase something cool. Public. Get hardness. We'll just do that. I'm just going to use that quick to get it to show. Back to main. I'm going to change the orange to fruit. The storing of fruit. So now, if I do prod 2, actually do it over here. It's prod 2 dot get hardness. You see, I can see that method, right? I see the method get
Yeah.
hardness. I can run it fine. And our
Can't see
prod
it.
1, which is a fruit, but is stored in a product variable, what's
Can't see
missing?
See it.
Right. I don't see the get hardness method because again, the variable prod is marked as a product. So the system can only guarantee that prod will have the fields and values of the product, not what's actually in it, but what it's stored as. So I can only access what's stored as, unless I pre-typecast it, which I could do then by just doing.
Oh, I didn't know you could do that.
I gotta do it right though. Hold on. Typecast prod, my parenthesis, and then dot, and there's my get hardness now. So I typecast fruit prod, or typecast prod as a fruit, and then on the result, I can run the get hardness now. The risky thing here is if I do that on a product that isn't, I can have, it's going to crash my program. Note how it doesn't yell at me.
Yeah.
The constructor is noticing this. It's going to let me know because the constructor knows, or the IntelliJ knows that product 3 is not a fruit. So IntelliJ knows it. So IntelliJ is warning me. See how I was doing that? So it's going to cause a class cast exception because product is not a fruit. So I can't typecast. It's going to fail. But note that as we get into more abstract items like lists of products where we don't know what each individual item is by the code, where it's not so explicit, that's something we want to be able to, we might want to do that first. We want to need to check if prod is a fruit. Does anyone remember how you do that? How do you check if an item is a certain class?
Typo?
What was that, Jeremy?
Typo?
Is it typo or is it another one? Let's find out. What was that again? I think I just heard it.
So
Instance of, right?
I think typo was for JavaScript.
I think you're right. Yeah, that's why it sounded familiar. Instance of, prod instance of fruit. And so this will get me a true or false statement. If it's a product of fruit, then I can safely do this without concern. And it's trying to tell me that I can change this to fruit, I think. Yeah, it's trying to change it up here. It wants me to change that, which technically I could do, but I'm trying to get to showcase this concept. So I can typecast it and print it. And so these are some things we're gonna get into again as we get more into the list. What time are we at anyway? Oh, it's a good an hour. Cool. Or half an hour at least. I would think it was later. Damn. Cool. All right. So mainly we're just doing a big rehash of stuff, which is good. So most of you guys are getting a kind of a rehash of some common stuff because again, I want to make sure you guys get those common items in there, and the new students are getting kind of a quick crash course. So the two of you,
I like
feel
it.
free to go through this again. Oh yeah, I figured that most of you wouldn't care this quick little mini crash course again to get some of those key terms again back in your head again, especially because we get more fancy.
Instance of, I haven't seen that forever.
It was a while, yeah. So I figured it would be good to remember that because I don't think some of you thought about using that in your personal projects. So, yep. So now let's so we got that. That's cool. We're gonna undo it because we don't need that there. What I want to do next though is also take a note of the printout of the items we have. So let's go back to prod hardness. We don't care about that. We want to print out this. So is there a problem with this versus what we have here? Any issues with the listing?
In what sense?
Just is there anything we might want to know more about with this printout? 'Cause what are we printing right now?
You can categorize them.
Yeah, we're not printing out any of the new or interesting data that the Apple and the RH have, are we? We're not printing the hardness or the organic status, are we?
No.
We're printing the same, which is fine. It works at least, but we probably want to do that, right? So let's do another 2-string. And I'm actually going to leave the override left out this time just for a moment. So as you can see, you don't need that at override system. And again, I'm just going to do a return. I want to just do something kind of interesting here. So some of you might be like, what's he doing? Go with me on this. So I'm going to do organic. With that, I'm hoping that my idea is that I'll be able to take on some of that other data we already have. I wanted to show what happens when you do this. So what did the override here do? What happened?
It ignored
Override the
string from
one from
product.
product.
Yeah, we're overriding an override that's overriding. So we overrode product overrode the superclass, the object class, and fruit is now also overriding the product, and we're no longer running this either. So that means I would have to probably rewrite all this, wouldn't I? Kind of annoying, right? I don't though. I can do that. It's not going to work perfectly though. I'm going to warn you. It's not going to be a perfect work. You'll see why in a second. Why is it not perfect?
Because of the curly braces.
Yeah, we're a little missing there. So I definitely want the space there, and I have the curly brace, which I guess though, if I'm going to make another child class, I could always just do this as a, like that, right? Could always just add that, and that way later on I can always just bring in other, if this is always a parent class and there's always going to be a child, then I can assume that this is not the only 2-string, right? That there's always going to be another 2-string calling this. So I start the bracket and then I leave it to the child to finish it, right? So I can do that. And so that I want to do there because I want to showcase to you guys that you can take advantage of the methods that your parent class has. And just to make this more universally friendly, I'm actually going to change this a little more to a bracket there. And on the fruit, I'm going to change it from here to this. And now no one knows that it's not finished. Ooh, I have an extra space there now. See how that works? Fancy, right?
Pretty cool.
So 1%, be aware that you can use the parent methods that are public by calling super. That's your parent. I don't know why they did super instead of the word parent, but I think it came from like the older languages. Like I think that's something in like even C had that or something like that. But some of the older languages had it.
It's parent. I remember that.
Yep. All kids think their parents are Superman. Just go with that when they're young enough. All kids think their parents are Superman when they're children. When you're like 5 years old. Look how strong your parents, my dad is. He's a Superman. My mom, they're all super strong.
My dad beats me.
Jesus.
Superman.
Oh God. Okay, Keith, this is recording. Trim that
This
out.
really looks like the props
Trim
from React.
What's that?
It's the way that super works. It really reminds me of props
Yes.
from React.
Yeah, super is a keyword that's used in a lot of languages. Probably why Java used it, just because they're not the first object-oriented language. So other languages have used super before. So it's come around it's been around in several languages. C# has it. I think even Java uses it. Sorry, JavaScript. Let's say even JavaScript uses it. Ruby uses it. Python uses it. They all use it. Yeah, and React, yeah, because JavaScript still uses it. So Super is a keyword that's been around from computers for a while. Even though there are names that might fit it better in certain languages, they just kept with it because it's familiar to developers. You'll see that happening a lot of times. But there we go. We have a very useful, and what we can also do here is actually, I'm going to add the space here because for all we know, if you really wanted to get fancy with your system, you could then make even further child classes, like an apple class and an orange class, if you really wanted to. That's when you're starting to maybe get too specific. But in a grocery store, you might need that because we know that there are multiple types of apples, right? So maybe you do want that apple class. Maybe, not guaranteed, but it's something to consider, right?
If you were really implementing this as for a store, you probably would have all those classes, right?
Potentially, yeah. Especially if you wanted to keep that kind of separation of concern, definitely. So you could definitely do that. It would depend on, do you need that additional information or that additional separation? But if there's no additional data there, then not necessarily, because you could just store them based on name. So you could separate them based on name instead of having apple. You have apple, and you could also add another field in like fruits, because all fruits have a, what's the term for, when I say I have a gala apple or a red delicious, what is that term?
Like a type of.
Yeah, I think it's what you type. I wasn't sure what they call it, like genealogy or something like that. I don't know. But type. But we can have type, and then I think Keith, you actually had the other type of concept behind it too. So there's the type of apple, and then there's also what else?
Manufacturer, like who's providing it.
Yeah, the supplier, right?
Supplier.
So that could make a difference potentially. Potentially. You don't know if that's actually a thing in the grocery store, but that's over time. Those are things you can add. The question is, do we need a separate
100%.
class
If you
for that?
notice how everything has a sticker on it.
Right, but does the POS need to know the difference in order to charge the customer? And do I need to know, is this the apple being sold from this supplier or from this supplier? Do I, as a company, need to know that or not? That definitely something you might need to know. But again, that's something you need to ask the company. Do I need to know that this apple sold was a Del Monte? I don't know the brands for apple, but a Del Monte versus a Evans, whatever.
I
like,
had to look this up.
Yeah, if I don't need to know that, then I don't need to store that. But as soon as the company says, no, we need to know which suppliers apples are selling more, we want to know that, so we buy more from that supplier, then yeah, we can definitely put that in the system and add that as a field. But are
It all
those,
depends how much the admin's paying you to do. How deep do you want?
that true? Yep, that too.
Yeah, all the detail.
Yep. Do they want that data? Is that data going to be useful to them? As soon as they want it, you can easily add it. the
Big
question you
data,
know-
it seems like the biggest thing in the world right now, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. But I'm also mentioning like Felicia's fruit stand, we're working with right now. We've gone from a fruit stand to a farmer's market stand. I don't know if we're fancy enough to need that data yet, but eventually if we do end up being Felicia's supermarket, then we might need that information, maybe, right?
Yeah.
And that's what's interesting about this. As the store gains more information, gets bigger, they have more data they can glean, and they might be able to benefit from that data. So that's something that's gonna be good to know. Because yeah, it could be good to know how many, when we got these apples from Del Monte, and they sold really fast. But when we bought apples from Evans, whatever you said, we threw away like half of them. People didn't buy those, so they either looked bad or they were smaller, they didn't like them. Something was wrong with that, so we're definitely gonna prefer to buy from Del Monte, for example. That could be data that a big grocery store needs to know, you know? So yeah, it could be information. But what I was trying to get to though, is that, do we need a separate child class for that information, or can that all be stored within the fruit? Can we keep the same class? How much separation of classing do we need in order to make sure we get that data accurately? Do we need an apple class, or can I keep track of that data by just using fields in the fruit class, right? So I can add
I guess
in,
every fruit has its own supplier, no matter if it's apple and apple.
Yeah.
Every fruit is gonna have a supplier, so you don't need one specific just for
they all
that.
have, so all fruits have a supplier. All fruits have types, right? You just proved that with the oranges. We have clementines, blood oranges, grape. Well, they don't look grapefruit; they're considered oranges. But there are multiple types of oranges. Navel oranges. There we go. That was what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Even potatoes. You have russet potatoes, red potatoes.
What are those small clementines, right?
Yeah, that's what I said. Yep.
Oh, you said that?
I love clementines. Those are my favorite. But yeah, even potatoes have multiple types of potatoes. You have the russet potatoes. You have the
Red, yellow.
red potatoes, the yellow potatoes. You have the little tiny potatoes. The
Sweet potatoes.
Yeah, sweet potatoes, right?
That's one.
I forget sweet potatoes. But even then, I will say sweet potatoes themselves have their own types too, because you have the standard sweet potato, you have purple sweet potatoes.
Yams, Japanese sweet
Yams, yep.
potatoes, like
And so, but again, all of those could be stored under fruit or vegetable. But even then, fruit and vegetable could even, we could even maybe even expand this from fruit to just being produce, right? And do both fruits and vegetables technically. So those are things you get to think about. That could be really interesting. We do type. And we're not going to use these right now, but we're just going to put them in the showcase. We can have them at some point. Type and brand, I guess we can use, or supplier. What do you want to do? What do we think? Brand or supplier?
Supplier.
Supplier. There we go. Again, we're not going to use those
I
right now.
have worked in a restaurant before and they use suppliers. I don't know about
Gotcha.
supermarket. but-
That's fine. That's all we need to know. That's cool. Again, whatever fits the term. So again, brand is fine because that's the sticker. Some people might consider it the brand, but it's technically a supplier because yeah, it's all good. Yeah, fruit could be renamed produce, but yeah, this was really interesting about building these products. So you'll see that they migrate and that they can slowly evolve and become better as you think about it more. Let's get a quick another one. We're actually going to avoid the electronics. We're going to go away from the iPad. What was the other product we actually had in our store?
Said
It was
meat.
produce and meat, right? Yeah. So let's switch
You could
this
have
to a type of
drinks.
meat. What's that?
you have drink like dairy.
Could do
Alcohol.
dairy. Drinks, could do
coffee.
drinks. Actually, I think I might do that because yeah, fruit and meat
Because-
aren't so different. They could be somewhat similar. So let's go ahead and do drinks. I like that. Let's do milk. What cost is our milk? So I'm gonna say it's not $2,400 for our milk.
That's
Depends on the type of milk. Depends on the type.
True. So see, even milk needs types. So it's something we need to think about.
Yeah, I mean, it could be soy milk.
What kind of milk are we doing this time?
Could-
About $2,000.
Just whole milk, right?
Whole milk to start. What's the price of our whole milk?
What's the carton cost? Is it like $4.99, something like that?
I mean, that's per gallon.
Yeah.
So you with milk, you have per gallon, per quart.
I was gonna get to that. Yeah, you jumped my gun on me a little bit, but technically, yeah, that's what the drinks are gonna add volume, right? Drinks are gonna add volume to it, right?
Yeah.
I can't do that. Okay.
So
Won't even let me
for
do
that,
that.
wouldn't we go based
Okay,
off of fluid
great.
ounces?
What was that?
1
For
gallon.
that, wouldn't we go
Oh, go
fluid
ahead.
ounces would be the what we call it for the volume.
Again, we're probably gonna add that as a field to the milk class. I'm just switching it based on a product, a milk product right now that doesn't store that data yet. And what's happening is by changing this to the milk to a drink item, we're gonna realize, oh, what fields do we need? So that's what I'm trying to help you guys do right now. By doing this, switching our product to milk, you guys are hopefully kind of realizing, ooh, I'm missing data, right? There's information here that's not here that I can't put in that I need in order to really sell this milk right. There's information that I don't have that I need to have. And so some of you already thinking about it, the size of it. So price is still a valid item. The whole milk is a good name for it. That's fine. And even then, for the moment, we're just going to call it milk because again, we might realize that type may belong in both in there as well. So maybe we move these items from fruit back to product, and these are product level attributes from what we know. And that's again one of those key items we want to see as we build things. As we do this stuff, we start with this simplest thing. Realize I'm missing things. There's stuff I want to give it that I can't give it. And that's going to help me to realize how to better build my objects, right? So take note of that when you're thinking that, like, hey, I do need to add this stuff. But yeah, for now, we're just going to fill it out as if it's there. So I'm going to change this from E to D as dairy. I'm going to also add these as P for produce. We can do F for fruit if we wanted to, but I'm just doing P for now because produce. And then for this, we'll do whole milk here. We'll add the term whole milk here. I'll say gallon. That the $4 price tag is somewhat justified. Sound good? And now we can go ahead and build our beverage or drink class. What do we want to call it? What's our class going to be called?
Drink.
Drink class.
Liquids.
Liquids, could do liquids. We'll start with drink. It's fine for drink. I'm okay with that. Because we might want to do like liquids, like cleaning liquids in a different class category. So we can track in, we can store the property of like hazard level. Like, is this, what kind of hazard level is this liquid? So drinks are all safe. Cool. So drink. What are some of the fields we realize that a drink product has to have that fruit and stuff doesn't have? We already know of one. What is it?
The volume,
Right, volume, right? What's the data type for that?
fluid ounce, probably, or I feel like there was another one.
Anybody?
Int.
Int, right? Yeah, we do int. And so, you know, volume. And one thing we do with this, for some of you wondering, like, well, that's going to be a very kind of generic name. What we could also do, of course, is even add in the concept of a volume unit, right? So that we can add in, like, is it gallon, ounces, liters, whatever, right? And so this way we can make sure we keep our system as an integer volume without having to worry about, well, do I have to convert my if we're going to do, if our volume is always in ounces, do I have to convert my gallons to ounces now? Not necessarily. You can add in the system that allows you to say, well, my int is 1 volume unit GAL. We can have a set item for that of being set certain values for those. And we even use an array to store all the potentials. And so, for example, on that, we could do a private final static use. No, not that. Yeah. Equals. Let it yell at me. Oh, so I didn't get a thing yet. String that. Let me say gallon. What are the, we have OZ for ounces, right? OZS, what do you want to do? OZ,
Uzi.
liters. What else we got?
Milliliters.
Let's actually do milliliters, yeah, sure.
And
Now,
think, the idea that I can code again until I sort
how Java does it, weird, but whatever. Any others you can think of? Are those, do you think those work for us?
I think so.
I'm thinking of one more, and tell me if I'm wrong on this, but can we use pint?
Sure.
Yeah, pints, we got milliliters, ounces, gallons, gallons, no, we're just gonna do singular. Gallon, ounce, liter,
Quarts.
liter, and pint. Oh, we could also do quart. There you go. Quart. Is that QT, right? Yeah, you can do whatever way you want to do it. You can spell it out if you want, quart. You can even spell out milliliters if you want. I don't want to spell it out, actually. I'm going to do ml, and I don't want to spell ounces, so, or gallon. So whatever way you want to do it. And that's the thing. The main thing is just keep it easy to use. I'm going to keep it like that for the time being, so we can move on to more important stuff. So again, one last thing I want to go with this stuff. So some of you may be looking at this and it's fine, but I want to actually let you know that this is actually a bad variable name right now. Why? And then I'll change it one thing. Units. We'll call it that. Volume units is actually a better term. You could even just call it units if you want. All of these variable names are wrong, are bad. Any idea why? And it's only bad in a sense of common coding practices.
Not very descriptive.
Some of them aren't. Some of them are. What I want to say is, like, what type of variable is this? What's special about this variable? What makes this variable different from volume and volume unit? What's special about this one, this field?
Collection.
It's a collection. That's one thing. True. Not the one I'm looking for, though. What else is special about it? What kind of field is it?
It's static.
Static.
Right, and if it's static, what does that mean about it? It's final static too. So static isn't that important, just means I can access it without instantiation. Remember that. Static just means that this item is accessible without instantiation. It's a class field, not an instantiation field. So it's accessible via drink.unit if it was public, which actually this one I can make public. It's fine. So this, if I can, because of this, I can now just do under main. All right, drink dot, look at that, units. So that's what static means. Static means I can access it without having to instantiate it. Remember that, static, that's all it means. Which is definitely unique. So there's one more thing special about this one. What else is it?
That it's final,
All right, and what does final mean?
that you're not able to change it.
Right, and what's the term of art for that?
It's a constant.
There
Not
it is.
mutable.
Immutable.
Constant, which
So-
yes, that's another term of another good term of art there, Keith. Yes, constant variables are immutable. Yes, they are not mutable. They cannot be changed. Good. Yep. And so with constants, there's a special way we do variable names. Does anyone know what it is?
Capitalized.
Yes. Constant values are caps locked units. This is a way to kind of just yell at yourself to never try to put this on the left side of an assignment operator. You should never try to modify an all caps variable. That's kind of the idea here. By seeing an all caps variable, you know you should never try to change its value. It's a read-only variable. That's kind of the meaning behind it. Do we have to do it that way for code to work? No. There's a common coding practice as a way to just kind of hint to your fellow coders, never change a all caps value. It's a constant value. It's not supposed to change. The last thing I say is because of the public, because of it's a final static, this is also a automatic private variable that has it's a getter only. This is a shortcut to a getter only variable. A final item that's public only can be accessed. You cannot modify it. So you don't need to worry about getters and setters. It automatically has a setter with that just a getter that just gets the value as is. So this is a shortcut to a nice private type of item. Cool stuff, right?
That is cool.
Cool. Awesome. Woo. All right. Again, this is something though that because there's probably no use for us needing this item outside of it, we could still keep it private, but I just wanted to showcase that concept that a public final is a getter only item. It already has its getter because you cannot write an assignment on something that's final. No, you can't perform assignment on something that's final. So like I said, it's immutable. Anyway, cool. So we have that. Let's go ahead and create our construct. And let's go ahead and now tell it that it's extending product. So we'll tell it to so caps lock. I'm going to go ahead and take the shortcut. Let's go ahead and do volume. And again, I'm going to do two constructors here for this. So in this one, we're actually allowing the person to give us the string volume unit. What's the dangerous side of that? What's the potential problem with accepting a string for volume unit?
Improper entry, sort of like.
All right. As we said before, it's good. It's okay to code in the start as if you're always going to get valid entry. But as you get more and more familiar with code, you know that if I do this, who's going to guarantee that this is what I'm going to get one of these, right? There's no guarantee in that, is it? That's a problem there. So in this one, we're going to accept it. And for the moment, we're going to assume it's valid. Later on, we can add in validation if we want to. We can add the validation in. That could be a challenge for you guys to add potentially. do this dot volume equals volume. This dot volume unit. We can also do though is do this instead. Public. I'm going to copy all this for a second. Easier. Turn this to an int and do nits. Bracket. Make sense? So this stage, we're saying that the volume unit, if the volume unit comes in as an int, then we're expecting it to be an index. And so then we're going to pull it from our volume unit. Sound good? So there's another type of overload. So the overload, again, can have the same number of parameters, but as long as one parameter is a different item, it can change the performance.
So Cliff, now you can't use a number as a string for the first constructor.
What?
So
Sorry,
now
I didn't say that.
are you not able to use a number as a string for volume unit on line 9?
No, unless you wrap the number with double quotes.
All right.
Right, I could still send a number, a stringed number, but then I'd have to parse it if I wanted to. But yeah, this would, yeah, if I put, what was it? That's a string,
Yeah, I just had a brain fart about the quotes.
that's a number. Yeah. Cool. All good so far? Let's update our main item. Let's turn this from a product to a drink. We need our volume. And what's our number volume? I did say it's a whole milk gallon, so what's my volume number?
1 gallon.
One, and then we can either do gal, which is in my units here. Be the good developer, or I can use the index 0. We'll see that both are allowed. So that's allowed, and gal is allowed. Both are accepted. Last thing we're going to do, I'm going to add in our 2 string methods. I'm going to borrow the syntax from fruit. Switch this to volume. Unit. How's that look? So far, so good. Let's add one more product of milk type now. The actual type. That's not what I do. Or what's our other drink we're gonna have now?
Vodka.
What is it? Say vodka.
Yeah, I'm being silly.
Can't do that in Rhode Island. We can't do that. For a mass, we can do it. We can't do that in Rhode Island. Grocery stores can't serve liquor, unfortunately. Yeah, go figure. They can sell cooking wine, but
In Mass, they can't, so they can sell beer and wine at the grocery store.
yep.
You need to go to a
Gas
package
station.
for liquor,
Wait, the
the package store.
Oh, you can go to a gas station.
For liquor or just beer?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know.
all I know is that in Dominican, I mean, not Dominican, sorry, in Iowa, the grocery store just had liquor in it. So, yeah. perfectly normal.
California, they have everything mixed too.
They
Yeah.
actually had the grocery stores out in Iowa just had a section of the store that was the liquor store. So they just had a liquor section, completely normal. Actually, I think even the Dominican had it. The supermarket I went to there, Supermercado, that they had there, they had a little liquor section. Cool. Anyway, so what's our drink that we can do in our Rhode Island grocery store? Who's not allowed to do liquor?
Orange juice, so we can put some vodka in it.
I like it.
Add later.
That works. A screwdriver, right? When I was in college, that was my drink of choice. Until I ended up doing a night where I did orange screwdrivers and white Russians, and that was not a good combination.
It's awful, very heavy.
No, it was the orange juice and the milk in my stomach.
Yeah.
That was probably a bad idea.
Acid in a base.
Yup. It did not sit well. The milk curdled in my stomach. It was not a good night for me. I learned my lesson on that one. What's the price of our orange juice?
$4.99.
Good. All right, I'm gonna do E02.
He's not showing up.
I don't know. Trying to figure that out right now. I was expecting it to.
What do we call those little tag names? Like those.
I think
Yeah.
because it doesn't know what we're doing yet, because we have that conflict with volume unit, it still doesn't actually know yet what we're doing. Let me do this quick. I want to copy this for a second.
What's the terms of art for those tag names?
Yeah, I don't
like
think they actually have
name-
one because they're an IntelliJ thing. So
Oh,
yeah. I do think they're
Control
called
V to
tags.
check.
What's that?
If you're
Yeah,
on.
Control V, I could do that. Yeah. Oh, no, not that. Command V, I think
Control
it
P.
is. Control P, that was it, right? Or Command V.
So you have to
on Mac.
click on one of the items and it tells you. Oh, I'm on Windows, so that might change.
Yeah, Mac's very different. Not important. We need description. Pulp or so here again, we can even see the orange juice itself has types too. Pulp, no pulp, vitamin C added. So even our orange juice has types. What kind of orange juice are we doing? You guys like? Who's here's a pulp person?
thick pulp.
Cool. Okay, good. I'm not weird.
You also have fresh squeeze.
Yeah, fresh squeeze, home style, all of it. We'll do pulp. Pulp. And then what's our volume? No, they don't come in gallons. What do they come in?
Is it half gallons?
Maybe.
Nice.
What would a half gallon be? Because we can't use decimals. So
8 cups.
8 cups. We don't have cups. We'd have to add that.
True,
And then
half
big
a
cups.
gallon though. And what's a gallon?
They come
16
in
cups, right?
quarts,
What's that, Manny? I think you had said it.
quarts or ounces.
Quarts or ounces.
They're
Yeah.
fluid
Isn't it
ounces.
like, is it 4 quarts in a gallon?
I would.
Yeah, 4 quarts in a
Yeah.
gallon. So typically
That'd
they
be 2
either
quarts
do
then,
like
so yeah.
2 quarts.
4
Oh, what
quarts
was
in a
that?
gallon.
2 quarts for a half gallon. Yeah, that would work, right? Yeah. And we'll do the volume unit of 0. There we go. And the tags popped in finally.
How? What?
Oh, not that one. We want quarts. Quarts is 1, 2, 3 is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5. So we're saying 2 quarts, which is a half a gallon, right? A 2-quart jug of orange juice.
Yeah, go back to that. One tab over.
Am I hearing Travis's voice?
Weird. No.
Oh,
Here's someone's voice.
I hear
Sounds
it.
like
too. I also
Arnell.
thought it was Travis.
Or no.
Yeah, I totally thought it was Travis. I don't know.
yeah. Sorry, my mic was still on. Lou Jane is in cohort 15, so she's working with them.
Gotcha. Oh, someone else in your building, in your room. Okay. That's gonna be a little dizzying and confusing. Hearing 2 voices, and unless you have headphones in, then you're fine. Anyway, so yeah, you can see here we got it working.
It's on right now.
Look at that. We have a good display system. We have our products. We have our products and our 2 drinks. Not bad, right?
Hmm.
There's a slight problem with this, of course, is that this is the way we're adding items to our company is not really effective, is it? creating them one by one with these numbers that we keep up to add that we can't iterate through. We have to then print them out one by one.
How come your ID is different than the one?
I changed them at some point. I decided to do the fruits as P is for produce.
No,
and
it's like double
drinks.
zero. You only have 1 0.
I did that. Yeah, I just noticed it. I actually did only have 1 0, so I goofed it. I just noticed that and added it in.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. I noticed my mistake and fixed it. Got that. Yeah, we definitely want to be able to store this in the collection, right? They should definitely be in a collection. These should be all sorted, all added together. So you can then list our entire inventory at one shot and be able to iterate through them and add or remove items. And so this is where we then see the next thing we wanted to do in the assignment, which was to create the store class. But we probably shouldn't put that in products. So we'll put that in store for now until we come up with a package for it. So we'll just do store. What are some of the fields that our store would have? It was one required field.
An inventory?
What was that, Jeremy?
An inventory?
Our inventory. Yep, so we have that. Start private. What data type would that be?
And
Hash
Int, because we want to be able to store multiple products in it, right? Our inventory is going to be multiple products. So we want to make sure we can store all 4 of these in a single collection.
array
A collection
list.
that can do that. Yeah, list, right? What's the data type of the list, though?
Product.
Product, right? The hell? Because we want to be able to store both drinks and fruits. And so the product class is the one we want to use. Now notice when I just type it, it's yelling at me. Why?
Because you need to import it from the other package.
Exactly. So we're only in the common grocery store package. So we need to go ahead and import it. There it is. Awesome. We also need to import the list class. I don't know why that didn't happen automatically. Let's import list as well. Till. And I'm going to initialize that immediately to save myself some effort. New array list. Yep, that's not what I meant to type. So that's ready to go. There's some of you being like, well, we have 2 of these. It's kind of annoying. If we really wanted to, we could simplify this by just doing a star symbol, and we don't need, we only need the one. But of course, that does import the entire util class, which can be a good amount of items. So what I would recommend is you, again, in your code right now, don't worry about it. Import multiple lines or import the whole thing, whatever you feel more comfortable with. Because in HackerRank, for example, they do the Java util star automatically for you usually, because that's a very common package to bring in. And the company, you'll want to know what they prefer. They prefer you bring them in individually one by one, or are they okay with you importing full packages? So check on that. Again, follow your company's style guide. That's what they call it. So for inventory, what else we have? And there's one required item from the assignment. What other properties do we have?
Console.
Not that yet. That's not necessarily part of the store class yet. I know what you're getting at. That's where later on, but something we don't know that exists yet.
Oh, the store needs to have a balance.
Ah, yes, right. Remember? It has a
So
store
for the
balance.
balance,
Able to
Yep.
be multiplied.
wouldn't you need the quantity of products that you have? Like, would each like individual product hold its own quantity?
Something we'll look into
Or-
later on. Yep. So good question on that. That is something we have to wonder about. We are going to get to that later on. That is something we're going to talk about on how do we want to keep track of the quantities. Do we want the product, the code to hold it, the lower items, or is there another way we can do it? And so that's something I'm actually going to show you a different way from what the other students had done, because this was the assignment of the weekend, just so you two know. That's part of the reason why I wanted to do it. And I wanted to show another variation of how we can do this. So we are going to touch base on that. At the moment, we're not worried about that yet, the quantity of each product, because we don't realize yet that's a problem yet, technically. it's good that you realize it already that that's going to be a problem. But at the moment, we don't see that in front of our face yet. So at the moment, we're not worrying about it yet. Yeah, we do need to make sure we can buy products. And so we need a balance that can be purchased again. So let's balance. And now for some of you, I noticed that you did actually set this as a default value. And yes, if you're going to do that, I would highly recommend you set that here, not in your constructor. There's one thing you want to keep in mind. If you're in your constructor, if you're just setting items to a magical value, like just a static value that isn't being passed into the constructor, set those here. So we're going to give ourselves $500 to start. We're not going to be wealthy. Like some of you guys give you guys like $10,000 to start. Give ourselves 500 or even less when we actually play it, but we'll start there. We're in a balance. And this way, again, it's a lot easier to see what this is. But putting in the constructor, when I first look at your product, it doesn't make any sense. And now I just see this random number floating around. So magic number here is being assigned to a variable that has a name. It fits a little more. So keep those out of your constructors. If you're doing stuff like this, put it up here. Don't put those in your constructors. Constructors should be used to set values for things that are being passed through parameters and arguments. Pass parameters through arguments. Blech. Any other fields? We have a store name, don't we?
Okay, so.
I guess
now you
potential
have your,
profit or potential or
data
stock.
types for content of
What was that?
those
I said I would say,
as
I remember we did this, or we did something similar to Felicia's fruit stand. And one thing
Mhm.
that I had was potential profit, which was how much the store could make off of all the items available to it.
Now, would that be a field or would that be a calculated method?
I feel, I guess it would be a calculated method.
Right. Because if you, so that's actually, I'm actually glad you asked that, because that's something I wanted to bring to some people's attention, because a lot of you had these status fields that were values that could be generated by other items. Like some of you had player count in some of your games, which really player count is just the length of your collection, right? And so it's a calculated item. And what's dangerous about these types of fields, so private int potential profit. As I change my inventory, I have to make sure that whenever I change this, anytime I modify this, I have to remember myself as a developer to update this field. If anywhere in my code I forget to update this field, that is a massive bug called a logic error. So there's a couple, there's three types of bugs. I just give you one, logic error. What's the other two types of bugs you can run into? One is caught during runtime and one is caught during compilation.
Syntax error and runtime error.
What was that, Freddie? One more time.
Syntax error and runtime error.
Syntax error. Can someone explain what a syntax error is, other than Freddie now? So what's a syntax error?
That means you typed something wrong, so you like forgot a semicolon or a curly brace or something like that.
Yeah, 100%. And those are most likely caught either by the IDE or when you try to compile the program. What's a runtime error? Someone else. Some of the people from the bottom of the list. I've heard from Jeremy today, but so someone else on the bottom of the list that I haven't heard from much. So the people without the cameras on that I haven't heard much from. Simer, Richie, Emilio, David, Cullen. Wait, is that Cullen? Oh, who is that? Who's the C?
That's Carlos.
What's the question? I'm sorry.
Carlos, sorry. Oh, right. So runtime error. What's a runtime error?
It's a error that happens at compile.
Not quite. That was the syntax error. Think of the name. Runtime error, compile error.
Oh,
Doesn't
so
really
just
match,
while-
does it?
While it's running.
There it is. Yeah, it's an error that
After-
happens while it's running.
Yeah, after, yeah.
That would be if you tried to assign a number to a string value when we didn't know that that could be a number, or if you tried to parse int something that the user typed in. That's the most common type of runtime error. You're parsing int, the user types something, they don't type an int, and you try to parse that, that's a runtime error. That's a very common one. So user entry errors that you didn't catch. That's a common runtime error. Logic errors. What's special about logic errors? So we notice syntax errors are something you mistyped. The code, we know that the system crashes. Runtime error. We can understand that sounds like something that causes crash. What's a logic error? What's special about a logic error?
It gives you a different outcome than you are expecting.
True, it gives a different outcome. So what does that mean? Is it fair to say logic error? Because the other two, when I have the runtime error and the syntax error, what do I get? I get a nice error
Error.
message, right?
Yeah, you get a nice error message.
If I have a logic error, what don't I get?
You get the wrong information.
Yeah, I don't get an error, right? I have to realize that that was wrong, don't I? I will tell you that
Many
logic
times
errors
during
are
the
the
live
worst.
dice.
Yeah. I will tell you, as a developer, logic errors are the worst
Yes.
errors you can get. There is no hint as to what's wrong with your system. You have to just go through the code and flow and try to find where the problem is taking place. These items here that are items that can be easily calculated on the fly are major potential sources of logic errors. Because again, if there's one spot of code where I forget to update this after modifying this by either adding a product or removing a product or selling a product, during the 3 times that this item changes. This thing has 3 locations in code that's going to change. I purchase a product and add it to my inventory. I sell a product to a customer, or I throw away a product. So that's 3 locations that I'm modifying the inventory. If in one of those spots I forget to update this item is now logically incorrect, right? Every time that situation happens. So that's why you want to be very careful of these items, these fields. And always try to make sure that this is something that's calculated by another item, make a method for it that calculates it fresh. Make sense? Cool. So that's going to save you a lot of headaches by avoiding the hell out of logic errors. So.
Oh, so just create another method to create that?
Exactly. Create a method to use it or use an existing method. Like I said, some of you during either Liar's Dice and some of you for like Dice Mage, you had like player count. And so that one, for example, is what you could just use the size method of your list to get the number of items in your game, right?
Yeah.
You don't need to track the number of players if you just use the size method built into the list. So that was one of them. That was very much there.
So should I think like every time that I have to do any calculation, I should create a method instead of just doing?
Usually. Can that now again, is that a law? No, it's a rule of thumb. It's something that you should avoid. If it's something
Just to
that,
make it
that
easier
updates
so I
very-
don't have
yeah,
bugs.
exactly. If it's something that updates very rarely, then maybe you can store it because then you're not running that same calculation is going to result in the same result 50 times. So if it's a field that doesn't change very often, and so every time you're calculating it, you're just going to end up getting the same result over and over and over again, instead of going through that same calculation multiple times, then yes, you could store it. But that's why I want to make sure it's again, any rules I give you are just that. They're rules, not laws. There are, of course, special situations for everything that can allow you to change a rule and kind of go around it. Don't ever set any of these rules I give you as actual walls that you can't go around. That forces that concept, that idea of like setting up that rules are actually barriers or walls is where the phrase thinking outside the box comes into play. Thinking outside the box is not thinking unlike others or thinking weirdly. It's realizing that the walls of your box are self-imposed by either things you've been told or things you assume, and realizing that those walls don't actually exist and I can go outside those rules. And so that's the thing. I'm giving you this recommendation, but it's not something you cannot do in certain situations. So hopefully that makes it a little clearer. Yeah, if you can justify that value that is calculated by saying, yeah, this thing rarely changes. 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna pull that data 100 times before it needs to be recalculated. Save it as a field so that you're not wasting processing power running the same calculation 100 times. Make sense?
Yep.
Cool. Awesome. I think that's enough though, by the way, for our system. I think we'll use that. So there's going to create a very simple name constructor. So store. Brain, come on. All right. Awesome. Challenge for people today. Oh, it's broken. Yeah, that's fine. Or all right. So challenge you guys, make these two items work. All right. You can add additional overloads, but you cannot remove code. You can add to the code, but you cannot remove any code. That makes sense? So you want to make these three items work. So do. Is that gonna work? Oh, cool, it does. And it has a date to it. Nice. I don't need that though. Add given. And for the newbies here, the reason why we like these things, you can see the to-dos do add this nice formatting to it. What, 2 spaces or 1? That's 1, okay. Reason why I like adding these to assignments. So if you do end up pulling this down from Git, so if you haven't been able to follow along or don't follow along, or don't code it out yourself with the video, you can of course pull this down from GitHub. These to-dos show up down here in the lower left of IntelliJ. So you go down to the lower left here, down this bottom corner, right next to run, you can see the list of the to-dos. So you can easily click and jump to the item you want to do. Very cool, right? Cool. So that, run. So your goal for the day is to take these 3 methods and make them functional based on the current system we have. And just for the record, I do know that right now we're not involving balance. At the moment, we're not worried about that at the moment. So don't worry about the balance yet. We're again, slow, small steps trying to make things work. Tomorrow, though, we're actually not going to be working on this. I was hoping that the other 2 would come back before I finish this because I wanted, what's his name? hold on a second. Before I do that, before I make them up, let me do this quick. Forgot to do this. Get it.
I'm doing that right now.
What's that?
I was just doing that, creating a repository.
Me, I gotta do that now for you guys.
Ooh.
It's weird.
What's weird?
I'm just getting an error saying that I have to make it product, saying basically drink is not in the import class.
I can check that in 1 second. I'll take a look. Oh, forgot
I
this.
guess I have drink in products.
Did you import the other package?
Yeah, be aware that I had to import fruit and drink at the top. Don't forget that.
Oh, that's why.
Yeah.
Life.
Sometimes it does it automatically if I remember to hit the enter key. Sometimes it doesn't. And then we'll do this for here. All right, so everybody knows CH12 encapsulation is the repo. Again, if you're not following my GitHub, I'll be surprised, but I'm CRC number 4, nice and easy. Those of you who haven't figured that out yet, it's because I'm Clifton Ramation near the 4th. So CRC number 4.
Wait, is it in your Slack or?
Don't think it is actually. If it was there a while ago. So, and I really haven't done much with my profile, at least not on this Slack, because I had my profile from the previous Slack. So,
I'm posting in chat the link.
cool.
There it is.
Or, yeah. Nice. And again, anything that is prefixed with the CH12 is stuff that I've done with you guys. That way you know what stuff is yours. So anything from the past, especially the two newer ones, anytime you want to look back at the previous stuff, so you want to look at the old Yahtzee or anything else I've done with class, anything we do together for GitHub is prefixed with the CH12. Sound good? It's easy to find. Yeah, as long as you've been following along, you can use yours, but if you haven't been following along or got stuck or your code isn't working, you can always pull this down. And I do this mostly for when you miss class. If you're out sick for a day, you don't code along with us, and you want to try to attempt the homework right away, you can download the code and attempt the homework right away. So you can at least get the code for that and follow along and code along. I highly recommend that anything you do, though, you at least type it out once yourself. So when you do pull down my code, I do not recommend you actually code on my code. You pull it down as a way to then type it out yourself, because if you do git clone and you don't change it to be your own GitHub, you cannot push that and you will not get credit for it. There's more effort you need to do. So my personal recommendation, if you do pull down the code, you use it as a follow along and type the code out yourself in your own IntelliJ project. So you get that muscle memory to build it. Any questions on these methods, or do they make sense, or does everyone pretty much have an idea of what they're going to do? Other than that, I'm going to have Keith share his screen quick so I can see his error.
Oh, no, I don't have an error.
Oh, good. Oh, that was the error. Got it. Okay.
It was, yeah, it's been corrected.
So, and since with that being said, then any questions about these methods, or do we kind of have an idea of what we might need to do? Anyone, of course, any problems? You got your TAs you can reach out to. And again, you actually have till Thursday to complete this. Again, I was hoping that Matt will come back. You know what? In 2 seconds, I want to do a quick little ping on Slack. 2 seconds.
It's crazy. They stole for all that time.
Yeah, Gabe, a half an hour.
Yeah, that's awful. You guys should take them
Sounds
to
like they're
dinner.
running the whole class right now.
Buy him a case of wine or something.
I mean, I can hear Matt in the background of Manny.
Yeah, he's just been
dang it.
running the class the whole time.
He's right.
Of course he is.
He likes it.
Dang it.
Yeah.
He's the one I actually want more. Let's see if you can see if he sees it for 2 seconds. Give him 2 seconds. I'll give him a minute. See if he pops back. See if he can. All right, 1 second. Ah.
He's slowly pulling himself away.
He did say, okay, 1 second. I just slashed him. So we'll see if he pops in. There he is. Cool. Where is he? Still joining. Come on. Pop in. There he is. Hey, Matt, welcome back.
Hey, guys.
So much for 30 minutes.
Oh, well, now I'm giving instruction to the new
Oh,
cohort. So I've been instantiated as the new teacher over there, apparently.
I hope they don't need you tomorrow because that would be an issue.
That will be an issue, yeah.
Because so I mentioned last week that abstract classes would be taught either Monday or Tuesday this week, and part of the reason for the non-competent day was that I want to make sure I gave enough time for your instructor to come up with his lesson. Tomorrow, your instructor will actually be Matt. Matt has shown a huge interest in wanting to teach and actually be an instructor for career devs, so we're giving him his first attempt of actually running a lesson. So he'll be actually walking you guys through abstract classes tomorrow. So he'll have a walkthrough for you guys and a challenge for you guys to build. And not to mention that, so you know, Matt, we're actually kind of building a Felicia's fruit stand together as a class you could also use as your example on abstract classes if you want.
Oh.
So you have multiple examples if you want, if you need it.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yeah, sounds great.
So be nice to him tomorrow, everyone. And I'm not talking to anyone in particular, but
Unbelievable.
But give him support. He's going to do fine. I've taken a peek at his lessons. I think you guys are safe in his hands. But I'll be in class. I'll be here, but I'm going to be muted and just kind of observing mostly.
Sure.
I'll only need to jump in if he makes a major misstep that's going to lead you down the wrong path, which I'm not expecting him to do. But that is what I want to do. That's why I've been waiting for him for you to jump back in so I could just mention that. I probably should have mentioned at the beginning of class. I didn't think of it.
That's okay.
But make sure that they know that so that they don't try to steal you again tomorrow.
I will let it known. Arnell kind of popped in and said, all right, you're going to teach them this project they did in VS Code and you're going to walk through it. So it's like, all right, well.
That's fine. Again, they can have John tomorrow because I know John already knows how to code abstract classes. So if they want to have John help out tomorrow, he still can. He's already built an abstract class before. So
I should be good. I don't think I'm going to be over there too long.
No worries. I just want to make sure they know that you already had this plan, and as such, I don't have a plan class. Could I do it? Yes, but I haven't planned anything yet for tomorrow. So
okay. I see you're offloading work on me. I got it.
Not necessarily. Cool. All good. I just want to make sure I gave that announcement. So good. Have at it, Matt. Again, I'll see you tomorrow. Let me know if you're running a little late so I can stall or anything like that if we need to.
Will do.
These guys also, I think the first 30 minutes of class, you guys can also work on tonight's challenge if you need to. So if the first 30 minutes we need to run a little late, we can do that as the first 30 minutes of class. You can practice the couple methods I put out for you. Sound good?
Great.
All right, that's it. That's what I got. 9 o'clock on the dot. Yes. Awesome. I will talk to everybody tomorrow then.
Wait, did you say you were posting the video? I'm sorry.
Yeah, as soon as I gotta close the meeting before it processes, but as soon as it finishes processes, I'll upload it. Again, it won't be trimmed, which I just realized I'm still recording.